Well, good morning, and how are we doing on this, I must say, at least where I live, beautiful metabolism Monday morning? My goodness. Don't know if anybody's heard in the news, but I will be doing another show. Not sure if it's going to be today because I need more information, but there was a mass shooting at Lake Arcadia here in Oklahoma. I'd say about 2 hours away from me. And it is truly messed up. You guys remember the Kylie Rodney situation where there was a big party, but nobody knew anything? We're kind of going through that here. And the way the investigation's being handled, even though it just happened last night, has me a little weary. So I really hope you guys can join me to talk about this. Karma Libra said, yep. Well, Can't stirred him up this weekend. This is from her channel, Can. And everybody keeps asking, who decorated Summer's bench? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to guess the two people in the picture, okay? The Will and Kate of Ben Hill Road have nothing to do with this fresh dirt, fresh potting soil. The charms around there, different trinkets. Looks like there's one of those wind catcher things. The landscaping rock. I'm just going to guess. But we got a beautiful photo up of them. So let's take a second and tell everybody good morning because, well, you know what today is. Woo! It's Motab Monday. Put your hands together. Leave me a comment. What is in your Motab today?
I don't know about Jackie Dobbs. I've just heard about him. I don't know about Jody Stu. I've talked to Jody Stu time and time again. And every time she talks to me, her story has changed.
Like in how?
Okay, like, for instance, she said that she was down on the bottom.
Has anybody heard, because I don't know, I haven't been keeping up with Earn the Burn. Does anybody know when old Earn's supposed to be out of the clink? I know he's been communicating with some people here and there. I was just curious. Oh, is V in here? Mere V. Wanda, by the way. Let's say congratulations to Wanda. She is celebrating an anniversary and got a very, very beautiful new wedding set. Can we all give her a big round of congrats? It is gorgeous.
After she heard somebody scream or whatever. She was never at the bottom of that driveway. I drove down there faster than she could fucking fly.
Okay. So she said, so the scream, of course, is out of the question now, right? There was no scream, right?
There's no scream, dude. She's maced all that shit up. Lie. I can't lie. It's not in my metabolism.
No way.
Okay.
It's not hers.
Now, if she was standing down there, was that after Summer had came up missing?
I don't know when she got down there. I just know when I drove down to my mom's truck, she was down there.
Okay.
Was she already looking or was she doing something different?
She was just standing on the corner.
Very, very interesting.
Right.
Was it surprising you coming down the drive knowing your daughter?
Yeah, because usually Jody Sue don't walk around. lie. I can't lie.
It's not her metabolism. You can forget that business. Debbie has a question. What's the reason Candace is now all of a sudden taking an interest in decorating Summer's bench and hanging up signs? 5 years too late. Woo! Woo! My opinion is, and obviously I don't know, haven't had the chat with Can't or Don the Con. My opinion is they're both trying to get under Nana for Life's skin. This seems to be something personal they have with her. Speaking of Nana for Life, she was busy. She had to go to the doctor. She went over to Sullivan County. She talked to the sheriff, Jeff Cassidy. They even had a chat about Summer Wells. I would love to know what his opinion of the case is, because he's a good sheriff. He's a good sheriff. Ooh, Janaka said, probably trying to impress the oldest son. Never thought of that. That's a good one. Never thought of that. But you can see Nana went around and she is putting up more and more and more signs. I don't know how she's affording this, but I would have no problem sending her some money, whether it be for gas, the posters, the flyers, the laminating, the tape, because this is quite a project she has taken on. Okay, right there. Yep, they put him out like proudly on the fence. Have you seen me? Here's another one. There's another one. There's another one. Another one. Another one. She did a lot. She said she was exhausted that day. And back to the beginning. Woo. Woo. Oh, in my opinion, Sheriff Cassidy would have arrested them on day one. Ooh. 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 I wouldn't doubt it. He doesn't really screw around. And I don't know when the sheriff's election is. Our election days are on Tuesday. So I don't know when, I don't know if it's tomorrow or next Tuesday they have their sheriff's election. I don't remember now. Okay. So I came across this midnight report. Now this guy doesn't have very many subscribers, which kind of shocked me, because he has taken an interest in Summer Wells' case, and it might hit flat. I know some of you didn't like the way Profiling Evil did it. You thought he went a little too light on Dawn and Candace. You thought he spent a little too much time with the wandering off theory. Oh, Eyes Only said the sheriff's election is today. On a Monday? Woo, I'm giddy. I'm giddy. I'm actually kind of nervous. Whoa, thank you for that. I wouldn't know. I don't live there. Okay, so before we get to, oh, that's my channel. I don't want to look at that. Look at some of the comments. This lady, Exterior Peak, left this. I live in Hawkins County. Whether she was taken or her family did it, she could be right next to anyone here in a yard or a woodland, and no one would ever know. I think about her all the time. There are thousands of places she could be where she'd never be found because it's too remote. It's sad. I agree with that lady. Hence why the investigation goes on and on and on, and it's all over the place. All right, he's a cute kid, and he put a lot of time into this. So let me put the link in here if you guys want to go give him a sub or a like, or however you want to do it. There it is.
That everything I'm going to say in this video is my own speculation, is theories, and is usually not fact, just given how different this case has been to any other case I've handled. They have usually been...
Oh! So it's on May 5th. Okay, like I said, because our election days are on Tuesdays. I mean, I don't know. Hawkins County could do it different. That's usually a special election. I don't see that this would be a special election. So I think they're having a lot of primaries in Tennessee tomorrow. Ours aren't until June, but I don't know what Tuesday in June. So think about it. what a big day for Hawkins County. It's Cinco de Mayo, Taco Tuesday, and New Sheriff Tuesday. I'm kind of jealous. Really am.
And years and years and years away, so that by the time I'm covering them, a lot of the police reports, a lot of the information about the cases have come out. With the Summer Wells case, this is very much still an open investigation. We do not have all the information necessary from the police. So a lot of the times we cannot verify claims that are being said by this party or that party. So a lot of this is going to come down to interpretation. Yours, mine. What do we think is actually happening? Can we read between the lines? Is one story more accurate than another? That is a lot of what this case is. So I really want to throw that out there. Second thing is, this happened in 2021. So it is definitely in the internet age. This is a very different case than I normally tackle. I usually like to cover cases with reading a lot of books and taking my notes that way. Given this case happened in 2021, there's none of that. The only way I can research this case is going online, looking at interviews from the family, looking at how other creators have possibly covered the case, things that I might have missed from the interview, stuff like that. This was a very difficult and different case than I normally take on. So I want to make that very clear that some of this stuff is very open to interpretation and even might vary.
Okay. Excuse me. I hate that when I'm taking a drink and then I start talking at the same time. Nasty. Ugh. Now I can taste coffee in my nose. Sick. Sick, I say. OJ, that's your fault. Ugh. What he's doing, and I get it with him being new to the tube, which I guess we should all do, he's playing it safe. This can be open to interpretation. No interpretation here, okay? I'm telling you, I don't speak Dawn and Candace. I can't interpret any of the shit they do. I can't interpret any of it. None of it makes sense to me. Putting up flyers on day 2 or 3 would make all the sense in the world to me. Almost 5 years later, and going after Nana for life doesn't make any sense to me. This is attention-seeking behavior, but it's for the wrong type of attention. This is for shock and awe. That's how they do it. That's how they do it. We can have whatever interpretation we want. So we don't have to agree with other channels when they come on or we react to them because we've been doing this far much longer.
From interview to interview. So I did my best to put it all together so that you guys could understand the story of Summer Wells and what possibly could have happened. So Summer Wells is a 5-year-old girl. She's kind of described as being a tomboy. She was somebody that liked to play with her other 3 brothers. She had a lot of characteristics that lead people to think she was a tomboy. She was not afraid of getting dirty and getting rough and stuff like that. But at the same time, Summer also was a normal girl. She liked Frozen. I feel like every girl loves Frozen, so she fits perfectly into that. She liked to dance. She liked to twirl. She seemed to be a girl that just kind of fit into really everything.
She loves to dance. She would always want me. She says, "Daddy, hold my hand so I can twirl." And she would just like to twirl and twirl and twirl until my arm got tired, But
what people have always pointed to with the Summer Wells case is when you look at her appearance, sometimes you'll see her with her longer hair, and more closely to when she went missing, she has this shaved kind of shorter hair. Many people have thought, well, why is that? And we have contradicting statements from the mother and the father of why this was the case. We'll talk about both Candace and Don Wells in the following sections to get a better idea of who they were, but this is what they both had to say. On one hand, her mother suggests this was because she wanted to have her hair be more like her mother's and her brother's, embracing the tomboy side.
She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
While Don suggests something different. In the interview that I am referencing, and you'll probably see a lot throughout this video, he says she tried to shave her head herself and that it was getting out of control.
To shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head.
I will never understand this explanation. I don't know. Something's always eating at me about the scalping that she took. She likes princesses. Yes, she likes to play outside. Just because a girl plays with fire trucks doesn't mean she wants to have a boy's haircut. And Candace saying, I shaved my head. The boys shave their heads. So she wanted to shave her head. She liked Frozen. Now, if you look at this picture, the only one with the shaved head is Summer. She's the only one. And I'm not talking about a cute little pixie haircut. We know what went on. Now, do the boys have shorter hair? Yeah, they have boy haircuts. What does she have? Goodness.
Head to so she wouldn't feel bad.
This is really odd to me. For one, why is a 5-year-old girl being given access to a razor? I just find this to be incredibly odd. Why was she even being allowed to try and shave her head? Was this because she's maybe had access to a scissors and was doing it that way? Very unclear. But the idea that they couldn't maybe take her to a barber or a beauty shop or any of that stuff to fix her hair is quite weird to me. I know they live in a very remote kind of area, but this is your daughter we're talking about. And I know people are going to bring up, well, they are definitely lower class in terms of they don't make the most amount of money. They're on the poorer side. When we see what happens in this story, I just find that hard to believe that you couldn't get your daughter some sort of haircut or hair treatment or whatever. But other people, more on the negative side as well, have suggested this is more because of lice, that she might have been having lice in her hair, and the idea that it was getting out of control was because of that, and so they shaved her head. It's very unclear. It's very much.
This question has been sorted out for so long about the lice, okay? Now, I am not picking on Summer. I'm not picking on the boys. One kid gets it, especially in that environment. They're all going to get it. Every one of them. Okay? I don't know if you remember old Andrew that was doing lice treatments on both his girls' heads. There was no shaving involved. There was a little comb and something called Nix, I think is what it's called. This looks to me as to be some sort of shaming. And Candace says, well, she wants to be a tomboy. I'll shave my head. She won't shave her head. We know Candace. Who knows what she was doing? Who knows? And then Dawn's like, oh, it just got out of hand, so we just shaved it. No, I don't think so. True Crime Beat, who obviously has a squeaky clean scalp, said she had lice as a kid. My mom did not shave my head. No.
Much left up to interpretation. This could have just been what they were saying, that Summer wanted to have her hair closer to her siblings and stuff like that. But even that I find weird, because in the interview, it stated that Candace also shaved her head to make Summer feel better about it, which does not indicate to me that Summer was shaving her own head or that she wanted it to be shaved off. And so I find this to be quite interesting as we're going to go on, based upon the backgrounds of the parents and also the family dynamics. With that being said, let's look at basically our main person that we get a lot of our information on for this case. Candace Bly Wells, the mother of Summer Wells. Candace was born in 1982 in Spain.
I still can't believe she's 7 years younger than me. 7 years younger. She was born in 1982, he's saying. I already like how this guy is starting out, okay? We are talking basics. And again, this is Midnight Report, and I thought he did a good job breaking it down. Of course, you have your own opinion. But we're just talking basics here. And I know with all the riffraff and the daisies and the D-dying and all the stuff with Allie, and don't get me going on their antics, what led up to June 15th isn't talked about near enough.
much of her early life in Arkansas and Utah. Before moving to Tennessee, she had lived in several different states and worked various jobs. In recent years, she lived with her husband, Donald Wells, or how I'll be referring to him in this video as Don Wells, and their children along Ben Hill Road in the Beech Creek community of Hawkins County. Don and Candace Wells had 4 living children in the home. I also want to point out that Candace, by this point of her life, was more of like a stay-at-home mom, take care of the children type.
Okay, that's definitely not up to interpretation. I would never call Candace the stay-at-home mom that keeps the home fires burning and takes care of the children. But hey, Sect No One said you have to treat everything in the home, and everything, including vehicles, bedding, furniture, etc. So it's safe to say that would not be something our can't would do. Okay? That would not be something our can't would do.
She was not actively working like how Dawn would be. Their youngest child was Summer Moon Utah Wells, who was 5 years old at the time of her disappearance on June 15th, 2021. The couple also had 3 sons, all minors, who lived at the home with them at the time of Summer's disappearance. The boys were approximately 12, 10, and 8 years old. I will not be using their names for obvious reasons, but I do want to point out, with her other children, just remember, the oldest of the 3 was only 12. So I think that's very important to understand when we see some of the actions of the family later on. The family lived in a small home on a hillside in a relatively isolated area. At the time of Summer's disappearance, her grandmother and/or Candace's mother was also living on a camper a few yards away from their home. So we're going to have an issue here is that Candace, Summer's mother, also Summer's grandmother, also had the same name. So I am pretty much going to not use the grandmother's name most of the video to try and not.
Just call her Grandis, Grandy, because she likes to be called Candy. Call her Grandis Abandis. And please, for the love of Cain, please mention that we know for a fact, okay? Not going to have a pissing contest, no pun intended, about Dawn, if Dawn was there or not. We know those 2 adult women were there. Ooh, May May. They're my May May. I love you too, May May.
Not confuse you guys. If I refer to her, it will be as Summer's grandmother or Candace's mother. I'm going to refer to it like that so as to not confuse you guys as much as possible. We also know on the property there were about 8 to 13 dogs living on the property, which will be key for later on. For some added background, I also want to state that in 2009, Candace's sister disappeared at 21 years old, and to this day, the case is also unsolved.
When my sister went missing, I was in between Arkansas and Tennessee. I don't know all of what happened or what did happen, but I hope that they find her too.
Very interesting that in the same family, you have 2 cases of unsolved disappearances. Maybe it has no relevance here.
Okay. Does it have any relevance? You know who, Lisa K. Ruitz, will say no. I go back to what a seasoned detective said. Those are lottery odds. That's beyond lightning striking the exact same place twice. It's lottery odds for one person to vanish without a trace. But two, and let's face it, one was 5 years old, had been under the supervision of her mom and her grandma all day long, and then poof, she's just gone.
Or maybe it's a coincidence. And as many people I've seen leave comments on other people's videos, I do think it's relevant to bring up that I felt like almost nobody talked about. So then moving from Candace to her husband, Don or Donald Wells, He was the father of Summer and was born on October 6th, 1957. He grew up primarily in the western United States and had lived in several states over the course of his life, including Utah, Arkansas, and Tennessee. And I will say this about Don. When people go and look at the parents and say, there's some obvious red flags here, most of the time it's...
Boy, I miss that cowardly lion haircut Don had there for a long time. I'm telling you, if he wasn't such a perv and a preto, I would think he would be like in The Wiz or Wicked, because he has no problem being a coward and he has no problem acting dumb. With that haircut, Don could be a Broadway star. Does anyone know the answer to this question? I have heard yes, and I've heard no, so I do not know. Was it Rose that called CPS on Candace? We know Candace lost 2 children in Wisconsin to the state. Woo! It's deeper. It's deeper.
At Don, because he has a lengthy criminal history spanning several decades with charges appearing in multiple states. This isn't like he was having just, a bad year or two or a couple years. This was happening between 1990 and all the way up until the year that Summer disappears. So in Utah, we know that he faced multiple criminal charges between 1990 and 2001. These included attempted aggravated assault, interfering with a public servant, forgery, burglary of a dwelling, and theft. Later in Arkansas, Wells was also charged with burglary and possession of controlled counterfeit substances without a prescription between 2006 and 2007. More recently in Tennessee, where they were currently living, Wells was arrested in October of 2020 following a domestic incident involving Summer's mother, Candace Wells. Now we have domestic violence happening in the household. According to police reports, he was charged with domestic assault, possession of a handgun while under the influence, and unlawful possession of a weapon. In April 2021, mere months before Summer would disappear, Wells pleaded guilty to possession of a handgun while under the influence. The other charges were dismissed as Candace did not prosecute on them. When asked by reporters about his criminal history during the investigation into Summer's disappearance, Wells responded, "It's in the past and we'll leave it there." Despite this background, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, or the TBI, has stated that the Wells family has been cooperative with investigators during the ongoing search for Summer Wells. And so why did I just list all that?
Okay, he's right. At one point that was said. And then in March of 22, and it's never been updated, it was, nah, they're not cooperating. Nah, they're not cooperating. And they're so damn dumb, they think that the free attorneys that they had for their CPS case, and we all know how that ended, they really thought they were going to help them with interrogations and criminal investigations. The minute they got in there to be questioned, most people, they're read their rights. We'll provide you an attorney. You have the right to remain silent. There you go. There you go. A 3-year-old can understand that. But like a 3-year-old, I guarantee they weren't quiet.
Kind of stuff off. Because I think it's very important to this case. Don, Summer's father, has a lot of criminal history going on. He's made bad decisions, and I didn't even list some of his criminal activity that happens after Summer disappears, where he has...
Well, who's knocking at the door? Let's see. Well, mirror, Aunt Sherry.
Mayor Brooks.
How is it going? How was your weekend? Are you happy for Motabolism Monday?
Motabolism Monday, yeah. It's not in my motabolism to lie, you know.
Well, it's not in yours. Okay. But I think we can safely say her metabolism, there's a lot of things not in it. Taking care of children, cooking, cleaning, being faithful. There's all kinds of things it's not. So how was your weekend?
My weekend was fine.
Well,
had some people do a little work around here. And, that's fun. Maintaining a home is always fun.
mm-hmm.
And let's see. Today I go to a functional capacity evaluation to see if I need help at home, which I've already hired a caregiver. I have the greatest caregiver in the world, April. But I have to go through jump through all these hoops and stuff to see what I can do, and if workers' comp will pay for her instead of it coming out of me
Mm-hmm.
personally, which it has been, and I'm going to go broke. So
Yeah.
I'm having this test done. This is the only test, Brooke, that you have to fail to pass.
Well, isn't that how it goes with the government every
Isn't
time?
that weird?
It's like when
I
you
mean,
go.
I've got to fail this test, but
Mhm.
I just have to be myself. They'll know. They'll see.
You can show them this show.
Why do you think I sit in the bed all the time?
Oh, look at you go. Look at you go. So what do you think about how this guy is doing going through Summer's case?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, everything he said is basically true.
Yeah. I mean, it's alarming to talk about the basics. It really is.
It is.
Like I said, we've seen the entire Dog and Pony show.
Yeah, we have.
We know about the essay allegations. We know about all the money that was raised on Daisy's channel. We know about Fred and Ziggy. We know about Allie. We've seen all the sideshows.
Yes, and I have begged people, I won't mention any names, but I have begged people to please don't get involved in this. And they did anyway. And so now they're going to have to get themselves uninvolved.
Well, I don't think that should be too hard because Candace has more ex-friends than she does ex-children. And that's a term she uses.
As driving under the influence, problems there as well. Don does not make good decisions. He is somebody that brought violence into the home. It's not a good environment, in my opinion, for children. And that's the reason why I believe Don and Candace's children were taken later on, as it was not the safest environment overall. And Don even will admit this. So this is not me speaking out of turn. Don himself says it was probably for the best the children were taken from the home because of a lot of conflicting factors that were happening after Summer's disappearance. So that's not me like making an observation. That's coming straight from Don while me adding my own thoughts onto it. So just imagine you're Summer. You're a 5-year-old girl, and this is all stuff happening in your childhood years. There's a lot here that I feel like we don't talk about when we talk about the Summer Wells case because, we're trying to be nice and all this stuff. But yes, if we're trying to figure out what happened, we've got to take in everything. And this is part of the story of Summer Wells' disappearance. So now that we've established the family and who they are, let's now establish where they were staying. Summer Wells lived with her family in the Beech Creek community of Hawkins County, Tennessee, a rural area located in the northeastern part of the state near the Virginia border.
Hey, Kimberly.
Also worth noting, the Wells owned a good amount of land in the area where they lived.
What's that, Sherry?
I said, hey, Kimberly. And Brooks, have you ever been here? Have you ever been there in the Beech Creek area or 110?
No, I've been to Tennessee many times, but no, I've never sojourned out to Ben Hill. Have you?
Yes, I have. I've been up and down Fields Road, up and down Light Road. I've been all over that place. I did not go up 110, just telling you, just drove right by it.
Mhm.
But I would never go up there. Never. Never, never, never. But
Well, I'm not just going to set
I
foot.
wanted to see.
I'm not going to just set foot on anybody's property acting like some half-assed detective.
I don't do that. I would never go on somebody's property without.
I mean, public roads are public roads, but no, especially some areas.
Nay, Wilbur.
Mm-hmm. I heard a story the other day about there was a search being done. Fred and Laura weren't home, and people started going through their junk ass cars and stuff. And I was just like, that shit'll get you killed. I'm telling you, don't do it.
No, somebody else's property, you leave it alone. But did you hear what Candace said about Rose one time? Did you catch it? Because somebody said,
Did Candace say it, or did someone repeat something?
Candace said it. I heard it with my own ears. It's on somebody's live
What
somewhere.
did she say?
But she said, somebody asked her about Rose, and what do you think happened to Rose? And she said, quote, I killed the bitch,
Yeah,
unquote.
she said that to Leslie.
Do you remember that?
I have definitely heard about that. Yeah, she's a real funny gal, that Candace.
And Hawkins County is largely rural and mountainous, with many homes spread out along winding country roads and wooded hillsides. The Beach Creek area in particular is considered very isolated, with homes often separated by large stretches of forests, farmland, and narrow back roads. Many properties sit on hills or in hollows, and some homes are not easily visible from the road. The Wells family home itself was located on Ben Hill Road, a narrow rural road surrounded by dense woods and steep terrain. The property sat on a hillside, adding to the secluded nature of the location. Because of this geography, the area can feel very quiet and remote, especially at night. Cell service can be inconsistent in some places, and neighbors may live hundreds of yards apart. Important to note that Beach Creek did not have a local government or law enforcement, and instead was just under Hawkins County. So basically, this is to establish this is not like city living. This isn't any of that. This is more isolated location.
It's called common for rural.
Very.
It's
very.
called common for rural areas.
Yes.
You think in Bushy Head, Oklahoma, they have their own police force? No, they're under the sheriff's department. There's a lot of them.
Brooks, that road is a one-way. I mean, it is a narrow road like somebody's asphalt driveway. And you have to pull over to let somebody by wherever you can. Seriously, it's a one-lane road.
I've heard.
And there is a huge curve right before you get to Donna Candace's house.
Mm-hmm. So it's also safe to say that just everything I've heard and I've seen on other channels takes abduction out of the realm of possibility. And I didn't need the FBI card unit to tell me that. Well, look at that. It's raining in here. Look at that. Did everybody bring their umbrellas? Come.
Thank you, Kat.
And this is what gets so interesting, is because when you look at Summer's disappearance, and we're going to talk about that later on, is a very isolated area, and you get the sense of if someone took her, it's probably somebody they knew. Because who is randomly going to come into this small area that's very isolated and then commit like a crime, whether it was sexually motivated or maybe it wasn't, just randomly here? There's a lot of things that just don't really add up there. So that's something we're going to talk about here as we look at the crime in Hawkins County. Despite its rural character, Hawkins County does experience crime like any other community, but according to crime statistics, the overall crime rate in Hawkins County in 2021, the year that she disappeared, was approximately 2,563 incidents per 100,000 people. The following year, in 2020, that number rose by about 10.8% to around 2,840 incidents per 100,000 people. However, even with this increase, the county's crime rate was still significantly lower than the Tennessee state average, which was around 6,575 incidents per 100,000 people in 2022. And this just makes sense when you kind of look at Tennessee. If you're going to like bigger cities like Nashville, for instance, you're going to have more crime in those areas. Just naturally, it's a city, you have more people. So I think this makes sense. You have a rural area where there's not as many people.
I've seen bicycles up there. I've seen pictures of bicycles. Are you suggesting that something happened with a bicycle? I mean, I've just seen it on Facebook. I haven't really thought too much about a child having a bicycle. It's kind of a commonplace thing. I know there was something said about a bicycle on Fred's property. Well, Fred has nothing but junk on his property. I mean, who the hell knows what all could be found on Fred's property?
People just pitch stuff in the woods there like it's nothing.
I saw that. Yeah, I did. When JLR went and walked around with one of the neighbors. I mean, there was quite a bit of stuff out there. I was very
Oh,
shocked.
yeah.
We heard about the transmissions in the ditch in front of Fred and Laura's house. Like, oil. They threw like oil jugs out there. Nuts.
You
Yeah.
don't have them all like pressed together, and you don't have as much poverty as cities usually have. So I think this makes sense. It's not to discount that there's no crime happening in these areas, but it's to show that it's on a lesser scale than what you would expect from, say, a city, for instance. But most reported crimes in the Hawkins County were property-related offenses. This is something that both Don and Candace would kind of parrot in their interviews. But things like theft, burglary, motor vehicle theft, those were the type of things you could maybe expect from this area.
So
Okay. Marion, how are you, girlfriend? Fred said, ... he picked her bike up 3 weeks before Summer got gone. Why does Fred need her bicycle?
Why would he want it?
What is going on with that?
Why would he want it? For scrap?
I don't know. I can't imagine her little legs bicycling down that mountain and biking it over to Fred's. No.
Good morning, Mrs. Mama.
And then walking back.
always felt like they looked at us as a target. And we've had people steal our dogs and leave their mutts for as long as we've been there.
But with that being said, violent crime in the county is relatively uncommon compared to more urban parts of the state.
Thank you.
To add to this, Don himself claims that the area had a drug gang,
Yes, would you?
and also they had property theft occur before her disappearance.
You got the drug thing going on, and where we live at, you got certain groups of people, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but you got these boys and those boys, they're all related, and they think that they run everything. And a lot of people for years have run moonshine out there, probably manufactured meth and other stuff like that, and they think that they are the Bloods and the Crips.
Don points to these individuals as possibly responsible. I want you guys to keep this in mind for later. So the parents are aware that there were issues in the area. There was a possible gang in the area. So when you think about their actions moving forward, as I'll talk about and bring up when I think this is relevant, I just want you guys to keep that in the back of your mind, that there was a drug gang that was known by the family. It wasn't like this was a perfectly safe area. There was crime happening. So looking at the Beach Creek community itself, it was a small and tight-knit group where many residents know one another. It is the kind of rural area where people often leave doors unlocked and children frequently play outside. Because of this, the disappearance of a young child in the area shocked both the local community and investigators. For many residents, it was the first time their community had ever seen such a large law enforcement presence. And of course, this is an area where there's not a
I think I'm reading this wrong. Fred lived at the top of the hill and Dawn at the bottom of the hill, 3/4 miles away. Okay, 3/4 miles away, maybe. I don't know. But I saw the video the first time Ziggy met Fred, and she pulled straight into a driveway. There was no incline. There was no going up a hill. And I've seen other creators that have gone to see Dawn and Candace, Chris McDonough, Dolly, Cam and Allie, and it's quite a struggle to get up that hill. So I think you've got that confused. And the trajectory of the properties is important.
lot of people. There's not, a tremendous amount of crime happening, especially violent, which would attract more law enforcement. This is very unusual. And that's why it kind of goes to the statistics. And as we'll talk about it, there's something about this case that just doesn't make sense. There's something in there that feels like we don't have all the puzzle pieces to the grand puzzle. So let's move into the timeline of the day she disappeared on June 15th, 2021. I want to very much preference, we are going to be working off of a couple different accounts of different timelines and different witness testimony. Most of this does not come from the police themselves. It comes from interviews done by Candace, Don, and Hunter, who I'll talk about who Hunter is in a second. But the story of that day comes mainly from those three individuals. That just goes to show you how much of this case is kind of he said, she said. This is not like a straight police report timeline that they've given us. I'm working on the people involved in the story. So keep that in mind.
There is no police report that has been made public. I can tell you several people have tried to FOIA everything from the interrogation, any questioning. When the police showed up on the hill, we now know they didn't have body cam at the time. The sheriff's office didn't. We did a show about that. Okay? The answer is always no. Now, if a child just wandered off, they would be flipping out those papers left and right. They'd be like, yeah, she just wandered off. They're very protective with their Freedom of Information Act.
You're going to have to interpret it however you think things might have happened. We started the morning with Summer sleeping in bed with her parents as they were trying to work her out of it, but allowed it that night. Dawn claims to be the first up, getting up and leaving between 7 to 8 a.m. One thing that Dawn and Candace say throughout the interviews that they do is they're not good at keeping time. Now, I can definitely see this. I have people in my own life that are very bad at showing up to things on time. They can be late. For me, I'm the complete opposite. I very much can remember exactly when things happen because I'm somebody that likes to be at things early. I don't want to be late to things. So I'm like the polar opposite of this. So I will find some of this like hard to.
It was a camper.
And that's me. I can't stand being late.
I can't stand being late either, Brooks. I go crazy.
If I'm too early and I have to sit for 5 or 10 minutes, no
That's fine with me.
No problemo. If they're sitting there waiting on me,
I'm the exact same way.
Work, doctor's office, I don't care what it is. If they say 10 o'clock, my fat ass is there at 9:46.
Believe, like, how do you not know even generally when you left your house to a work site that you know you have to be there by a certain time? It's very odd to me. Like if I ask my dad, okay, what time did you leave for work this morning? He'll go, oh, this time, because I had to be at my job, which is like 45 minutes or 50 minutes away at this point. So just very odd. And also given the fact that, so he says 7 to 8 a.m. is when he left. At some point in that area, he woke up before everyone else. He didn't want to wake Summer or Candace or any of that kind of stuff. It's weird because his job site, from what we're told, again, there's a lot of he said, she said, and what exactly his occupation was and where he was, because he was kind of doing contract work. But it's said that his job was anywhere from like 40 minutes to an hour away, depending on Google Maps and all that kind of stuff. So the idea that he would leave at like 7 a.m. to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because then if he'd already basically gotten up and left by the time the others did, you have to then think, well, Candace and Summer have to get up to go to the hospital for Candace's mother, as she had an appointment in Holston Valley Medical Center at Kingsport, Tennessee, which is also about 40 minutes away.
An appointment does not mean emergency room.
Nope, there was no appointment. Grandis made that.
Forget the appointment. That's just made up.
Yeah, Candace kept trying to sell that to us. Oh, that's the reason I had to go.
Remember, this was during COVID too.
Well, and that's all fine and good, but this is the emergency room. Okay,
Right.
People are still having doctor's appointments. I had doctor's appointments during COVID time. You know, renewing your medication, getting, blood pressure check, physicals. Of course, they'd ask you to put a mask on, ask if you had any symptoms.
Yes.
Lots of people went to the damn doctor, and I mean lots. But they went to the ER. That's totally different. And like I said, Grandis is the one that straightened that lie out. Don't think Candace wasn't pissed about that.
So if you're thinking about the idea that you also need to get to the appointment early, that's usually how appointments work, especially with like specialists and stuff like that. She was going for her knee, so you would think they would have you come 15 minutes early for paperwork or whatever. You would think it'd be more like, okay, Candace and Summer and her mother would maybe leave more towards like 7:15 at the latest. So Don, it feels like more he would have had to have left at 7 a.m. if this timeline is to make any sense. Why am I bringing up this small detail that doesn't seem to matter? Mainly to show.
Because you can't change time. It's easier to change a damn credit report than time. Time is time. It is 9:51 a.m. right here. It's not 10:12. It's not 11:11. It's not 4:20 a.m. Time continues. So he's right. There is nothing about the timeline that is petty. Nothing.
It's vague.
Because it doesn't make any sense. Do I believe he went to the ER? Yeah. That's never been refuted. Do I believe he went to the hippie house? Yep.
The reason I brought up COVID is because people were having to wait so much longer during that time because a lot of people were sick. So that was an ER visit. It was no appointment.
Hence why I don't think she went to Warriors Park.
I don't think so either. I've been down that little walk. No way somebody with a knee problem could get down to Warriors Park and go to their swimming hole or horse pond or cove or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way she could have got down that hill. I went down that hill with Daisy, and she almost didn't make it back up, and I almost didn't make it back up, but that's been since 2021. So anyway, I couldn't even do that now if I had to.
That there's possibly inconsistencies in their story, and so like you shouldn't necessarily take everything that Candace and Don are saying as fact. That's what I'm trying to establish throughout, I think, all three of the perspectives we're going to have with that day. So we're going to then move to Candace's timeline, and then we'll talk about Hunter's timeline a little bit later on as well. So I want to state a major red flag I have about this case right away. So like I mentioned, Candace, Summer, and her mother head to the appointment for her grandmother's knee. Okay, fine. Let's keep in mind, she has now left her 3 children alone.
I'm praying boy mama right now.
Home alone, exactly. Okay, I'm going to answer the poll. By the way, 12% of you said no, you didn't hit the like, and you don't plan to hype. I can guess who you scoundrels are. I said, are 2 people missing in one family considered suspicious? 92% of you said yes. 8% of you said no. Love the conversations. And boy mama, we need to have some prayers, you guys. Need to have some thoughts, however you want to do it.
I just prayed silently, but I don't mind praying out loud either.
No sense in doing that. That's okay. But a sawmill got his hand. He's lucky to be alive. Woo, look at Carly. Carly with an eye. I'll hit that like for Summer every time. Hi, Brooks and OJ. Meow. And hi.
At their home, in which they have admitted there are gang things going on with property theft and drugs. She has left her 3 boys, her oldest being 12 years old, alone for presumably hours, and also being a sizable distance away from them. That to me is very suspicious. Now, I don't know how you guys are parented, so I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. This is very similar to the Madeline McCann case when I asked you guys, what do you think about this? My parents would have never done this in a million years. This would never have happened. If this happened, like they had to go somewhere, my grandmother, my grandfather would have came over and watched me for a few hours or something along those lines. More than likely, I would have just been taken as well to the appointment, but that's not necessarily the point. What I'm trying to state here is both Don and Candace left their children alone in the house. I just find that to be a bit odd. Candace then claims they dropped off Summer's grandmother at 8 a.m. for her appointment and are sitting in the parking lot when she gets a call from Hunter. So who is this Hunter person that I've brought up a couple times? Hunter is a 15-year-old kid who is a family friend of the Wells. His mother and Candace used to be very close, but something happened to make them not as close. They had some sort of argument. They're not really friends anymore.
A couple months for me to realize.
And what did you realize?
She was using me.
Okay, describe that for me.
Let's see, I put food in her house to feed her kids.
So you might be asking right away. This is something I see almost nobody bring up, which I think is really weird. Why is a 15-year-old, and I get it if you have some sort of family relationship, calling Candace at 8 a.m. just to ask what they are doing?
I know I went to the hospital at 8 with my mom, dropped her off, and I was sitting there, and Hunter called me and asked me what I was doing. I said I was sitting at the hospital in the parking lot waiting on my mom to get done. And he said, well, why don't y'all come over? I said, well, as long as your mom says it's okay.
That to me does.
I don't think he called her. I don't think he called her. I think she called him, and only the police would know because they've done the digitals. But yes, Candace did say that. And Hunter's father is in here. He's talked to Hunter. He could probably clear that up. I have the link pinned, Andrew, if you want to grab it.
Doesn't make sense. And I'm going to say this a lot. The Hunter and Candace relationship, however that relationship actually was, I'm not insinuating anything here, but I'm just stating.
Okay. Andrew said Candace called him. Hunter made that clear. And he even explained, it might have been on his dad's show, that it was odd because he knew that his mom and Candace weren't getting along, and he kind of felt like he was caught in the middle.
The fact of a 15-year-old hanging out with Candace and all this stuff is weird to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at this from a cynical eye. I don't know, but it just doesn't strike me right. And this is one of the things when we get to Hunter's timeline, I actually think I believe Hunter more on how this first communication happened. So just remember for now, it is said that Hunter called Candace and that Candace did not communicate with Hunter first. So Hunter was the instigator and them meeting up as of right now. Candace would even say in her interviews that Hunter was like a son to her, which makes it even more weird given where the two are going to fall out and where this story goes. Getting back to the timeline, Hunter then asks what they are doing and asks if they want to come to his place while they wait. This does not seem right. Why would a 15-year-old be calling Candace at 8 a.m., asking what they are doing, and then inviting them to his home? It's just very weird. Hunter then gets his mom's permission for this to be okay, and they head to his house.
She asked if Hunter could go fishing with her in summer because her mother was in the emergency room because of her knee.
Okay.
They then stay there for an unspecified amount of time and then get the call that her mother is ready to be picked up from the hospital. Hunter asks to go with them, and his mother allows this, and they go and pick up Candace's mother from the hospital. So now we have Hunter, who's part of the trip. Again, I find it weird that Hunter wants to go with them to go pick up Summer.
Andrew, what are you talking about? What channel? Who has $100 paywall to see everything Hunter has said? Chris McDonough? I mean, his is free. Who has this behind $100 paywall? This is about a missing little girl. Damn you, Andrew.
That's crazy.
And you can't afford cigarettes? I don't know what I'm going to do with you, Andrew.
Grandmother from the hospital. I just can't imagine many 15-year-olds find that to be very appealing unless maybe there was something else going on, which I do think there was. After picking up Summer's grandmother, they head to Walgreens to pick up a prescription, and Don calls asking Candace about what they are doing and how things are going, a very regular thing that Don does throughout the day apparently. And at this, they are told it will take 30 minutes to fill the prescription out. So I want to address the phone call because this will be another point of contention later on. I find this to be relatively normal. My dad also does this with my mother. So like, for instance, as soon as my dad gets off, he will call my mom and they will be on the phone. Basically, it feels like until he gets home. So I don't think any of this is unnatural whatsoever, but we will be talking about this call again. So keep it in the back of your mind. Instead of waiting, they decide to head to a state park to kill some time and for Summer to swim.
I hope this guy picks up on how they didn't exactly go to the state park with a nice beach that gets, manicured and, other people. And, they went to the back with fallen limbs and everything out there. Candace said she was afraid of illness, so they went to the backside. Okay, but you're afraid of illness, but you had to take your mom to the emergency room that morning. Grandis was even a little confused by that. And Andrew said he's changing that. Boy, I don't know what I'm going to do with you.
She had her swimwear on, but Candace said they made 2 stops before going to swim. First, to a discount smoke shop where both Candace and her mother got some Twisted Tea alcohol. Keep in mind, this is the middle of the week and in the morning, so we are getting, lit very early on in the day, but,
My understanding is 1 Twisted Tea was bought and given to Andrew. Not Andrew. Shit, I got Andrew on the brain now. Get out of my brain, Andrew. There was 1 Twisted Tea brought, and that was given to Hunter, and 2 vapes. Thank you, Tanaka.
I question one Twisted Tea. I question that.
Why?
Just because the length of time they were there, I mean, he could chug 2 of those, maybe 3. I don't know. But you can buy them as a single. I know that because I went to all those places too when I was there. You can buy them as a single, but it's unlikely that she did.
It's very likely. It was reported. They know. CPS knows. The police know.
Yeah. But see, contributed to the delinquency of a minor. That's what was going on.
Yeah,
Besides,
Hawkins County, for whatever reason, doesn't like to lay paperwork on the DA's desk. They've got all day to bust people at the pawn shop and pick on petty drug dealers, which all need to be addressed. I'm not saying that. But the big fish, they have left alone for almost 5 years.
Yes, I know.
Sickening.
Oh, you do you, I guess.
It's very
then head
frustrating.
to the house selling stuff like CBD, vapes, all that kind of stuff. Candace buys some Skittled flavored vape pens.
I don't know where that iced tea coming from. I know that I did buy an iced tea
Okay.
from the smoke shop in town, but I bought that iced tea for my mother.
Okay.
And if she was here today, she would tell you that.
Right.
And the vapes that I bought.
Yep.
Okay, she says iced tea. Of course, Chris McDonough knows what she's talking about. Twisted tea obviously has alcohol in it. Then she goes and says, if my mother was here right now, she would tell you. Grandis has made it very clear. So have her, I guess, pseudo friends. Grandis doesn't drink. She has other stuff going on. She's not a drinker. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if Candace chugged it down, but I don't think Candace, believe it or not, even though it's Candace, I don't believe that she would drive intoxicated. She is scared of the police. Cat OG, I have a question for Andrew. Now the substantiated allegations have been disclosed. Does he now believe Hunter? Ooh, Andrew, you've been summoned. And thank you for the super sticker. I'm going to leave it out so Andrew can see the question.
Were nicotine vapes from the hippie house.
Next door.
Right, next door.
I just find this very odd that a middle-aged woman is buying Skittle flavored vape pens, but I kind of see why that is the case later on. So again, there's a lot of hinting and foreshadowing, in my opinion, even from Candace's story, that something else was going on here. Candace then states that upon getting to like the watering hole state park they were at, Hunter randomly went off into the woods while she and her mother sat near the water watching Summer.
And my mom said, hold on a minute, so we waited for my mom to get out.
Okay.
And Hunter, he just done disappeared.
He's answered his own question.
Yes.
Her mother were sitting by the water, even though before he said that the hospital called and said that she was done, or she called and said she was done. So remember, like you said, it's the ER. It's during COVID time. So you're telling me 2 trips, okay? Well, I say 3. She went to Allie's, got Hunter, went to the hippie house, but she didn't go to Sonic yet. That couldn't have taken up all that time. No way. Oh, there's Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
Morning.
Oh, you sound sleepy.
I don't
Sir.
sleep well.
Good morning, sir.
So what was I going to ask you? Okay, you're going to take down that paywall.
Yeah, I gotta fix that.
Sounds like you're clicking away. Anything you want to add to this? How do you think this guy is doing? Cat OG, can we please have some applause? Please. I'm going to add to it. A relationship with a child is called abuse. It's also called felony, and it's also called SA. But we don't have to get that deep into it. I think we all know. Okay, go ahead, Andrew. Sorry. Andrew.
No, I think so far this guy is doing well.
Yeah. He's as confused.
I lost it.
Huh? He's confused about the timeline like all of us. You have to admit everything you've heard about Summer's case and how your son was involved that day. I'm not saying with her disappearance. You have to admit that it doesn't make any sense. The timeline makes no sense.
No, there's a few hours missing. I've been saying that the whole time.
I have it down to about 4. Sec to No One said it's also called statutory grape. Corey said it was COVID. Children weren't allowed in the hospital. That is something that I believe Candace said because, like Sherry reminded us, it was COVID time. So you drop off Grandis and they're sitting in the parking lot. They don't have an air conditioner. It was probably muggy, humid. And then Candace gets on the old cellular phone, 5-bar Candace, when she needs something. It doesn't work when she has to call for help for her children. But 5-bar Candace calls Hunter because she knows it's right around the corner. You want to go hang out? You want to go hang out? And he's like, sure, if it's okay with my mom.
Okay.
Hunter then eventually joins Summer in the water, and there is even a video of Summer in the water from a TikTok that was made. Candace said this was a completely normal day, and they headed back to get the prescription. So from Candace's account, nothing suspicious happens here. We do get this odd note that Hunter just went off into the woods for some reason. Don't know what that's about. I think this is another part of the story that was probably...
I can see him just going off in the woods. He's a child, okay? Call him what you want, but he's a child. He had alcohol and a vape. That's another reason why they're on the other side where people can't see what's going on.
A fabrication, especially once we get Hunter's side of things. And I want to say this before we get to Hunter's side of things, that I don't believe everything he's saying, but I think certain things from his story, when you pair them up with Candace's story, they make more sense given the context of what was happening. After the prescription was picked up, they decided to make 2 more stops. Firstly to Sonic, and then to a grocery store called Priceless.
Okay, you get mom's prescription.
Yep.
Then what happens?
Then I told mom, I said, why don't we get a Sonic?
Okay.
Because it's hot out.
Right.
So we drove in there, got a Sonic.
Right across the street.
Yep, right across the street.
Okay.
And then we left from there, and I went up Moreland Drive because I had to pick up a few things. I was in the store for maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. And now this is when I want to address the idea that Summer wasn't getting a haircut or any of that stuff because the Wells were lower class or poor or whatever. I just want to point out, in this exact story, we have Candace buying vapes, alcohol, going to Sonic, and we couldn't have had just a normal person, beauty salon or haircut place.
No, he's right on target. he's right on target. People have always said that. Well, that's just poverty. Well, that's just poverty. Poverty doesn't have a red Subaru. Poverty cannot afford cartons of cigarettes at a time. Poverty doesn't have 11 acres and a house just given to you. That was their choice of living. Does that make sense, Aunt Sherry?
Absolutely. It is a choice.
So we can buy slushies, vapes, cigarettes, R&R, gas, which is, I don't care what anyone says. Gas is never going to be, cheap again. To, drive 40 minutes in that Humpty Dumpty of a truck of Grandis's, that cost a pretty penny. Took vacations. She still does. She's gone down to Georgia. She does all kinds of things. She's wanting to meet West Virginia Butterfly in Gatlinburg. That's not poverty, my friends. That's a life choice. You see, they'll buy frozen pizzas, but not soap. Okay? That's their choice.
Barbershop, whatever, cut Summer's hair. This is the kind of stuff where I'll give you a pass on one thing. I'm not going to give you a pass on it when I see other things that contradict it. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Candace says they were in the grocery store for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just getting essentials, and they left. So this is things like milk, for instance. You could say maybe eggs, bread, just your general stuff that you would go in. You're not doing your whole grocery shopping. So for instance, let's say you go grocery shopping at Aldi's or whatever, and then you're like, oh, they didn't have a certain couple things. Let me stop into like a Dollar General. That's kind of how I imagine what Candace is trying to say they got there. But they say it was 5 to 10 minutes. Again, important for later on. At this point, Hunter is then dropped off and the other three head home. We see a pretty tired Summer in the back seat with some of the groceries, namely 2 milks and a grocery bag. So we actually have this image. It's actually from a video that was taken. I believe this was from the grandmother. She was trying to take a picture, but they accidentally took a video. And so she was just very tired. There are going to be a little bit more sinister theories about that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so like I've mentioned throughout Candace's story of what happens that day before the disappearance of Summer, Hunter has a fairly different story. Like the events, the places that they go are still relatively the same, but some of the things happening are slightly different in Hunter's story. And again, this comes from an interview that Hunter did. This comes directly from his mouth, not from me interpreting stuff. So getting back to the start of the day when Candace and Summer were in the parking lot, Hunter suggests that Candace texted him first saying that they would be at an appointment for her mother, and then that prompts Hunter to call.
She texted me saying that her grandma was in the hospital.
Do you have those texts?
No, the TBI has my phone.
Got it.
So that day that she texted me, and she said, my grandma's in the hospital. Well, her mom's in the hospital, but we called her grandma at the time like we used to. So I called her up. I said, y'all want to come over here for a bit? Because she's going to be in the hospital for a while.
To me, this makes way more sense. Because in this scenario, Candace texts Hunter saying,
another question for you, not a drama, thank you. Why didn't Andrew pursue charges against Candace for the relationship with his son? He did ask Hunter if he was knocking boots with Candace. I can tell you personally that he did. I was on the phone with him when he called CPS, called Hawkins County, and called Sullivan County. They didn't do anything with it.
They don't want to do anything.
And if you guys want, we can go through that again, not today. The charges were pursued. I can say that for a fact. But when you have the case number and you go to check it again, it said unfounded. And well, I about lost my lunch.
Where they are, that then would prompt Hunter to go, oh, okay, well, while you guys have time, do you guys want to come over? All that kind of stuff. That makes way more sense than Hunter, a 15-year-old, calling Candace at 8 a.m. and asking what they're doing. That to me just makes more sense. Not to say that this is exactly what happened, but in my opinion, it feels more normal than what Candace proposes. But again, Candace does not.
Now, Andrew, you did call Hunter a liar on my show, and you made Candace a moderator on your show. And so could you have been part of why they didn't go forward with charges? I mean, you were putting these things out publicly.
No.
You don't think so?
No. I think that one had nothing to do with the other, and at the time I was just pissed off at Hunter. So,
Ooh.
I mean, since then, him and I have been good though.
Are you sick right now? You sound a little nasally.
Just a little bit, but I'm all right.
Mention this text, and we'll go on to dispute Hunter's claim. Hunter then also states once Candace had arrived to their home that the three boys were with their father at work, but again, Candace denies this, stating that they were at home watching television.
And so she pulls up, she gets out the car with Summer, and supposedly the kids went to work with the father.
Now, this is an interesting note. Again, we can't verify this outside of Don and Candace deny it.
I still think that Candace used Hunter as a proof of life witness. She wouldn't know what that term means. There was something convenient about having Hunter with her that day. So much to the point where her lazy ass, who doesn't like to get up till 1 p.m, got her mother out of the camper or off the couch, I don't know, and said, we have to go to the ER to check on your knee. This is Candace, okay? Has anyone ever seen Candace have any sort of empathy pouring out of her for anyone besides herself? Now, what I find is odd, I've always thought it was odd, is the way that Hunter separates himself from Don. He goes, the boys were with the father, not the boys went to work with Don. See, that would be a simple, uncomplicated sentence. What he put out is more of a complex phrase. If you remember junior high English, he says they were with the father. And I'm pretty sure someone has looked into why he said it that way, why he asked her who was calling, what the father wanted on the phone. Woo! What is going on around here? It's not raining anymore. It's tornado season. Thank you, Muir Camp.
And Hunter says, well, this is what she told me. Based on witness testimony, I would assume this is not the truth. I think it is more likely that Candace probably just left them at the home. But again, we don't have exact police reports. We can't tell who is telling the truth and who's not. Maybe only the police know. So again, this is just something that's just thrown out there by Hunter. You either can believe it or you cannot believe it. The next inconsistency comes after they picked up Grandma from the hospital and they go to the pharmacy for the prescription. Now, Hunter notes that when Candace got the call from Don, he asked what it was about. And Candace says it was Don calling about a man who has been on their property for a week that keeps stalking little kids or interacting with them in a sexual way, apparently.
Her husband calls her talking about this dude named Andy or Andrew on the property that's...
Do people still think you're the Andy or Andrew that was sneaking around the property? Andrew? He's muted. I don't know what the hell he's doing. Andrew,
No, I cleared that up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would say so. I still think that the father, their dad, see, again, that'd be like me talking about Aunt Sherry saying that lady on panel. Like, he doesn't personalize Don at all. It makes me wonder if Don didn't at some point threaten him, because he was very oversensitive about what Don was calling for and what Don was doing. Go ahead, Sherry.
I want to know if the boys had cell phones so that they were able to call someone, even though they were locked in, supposedly. No in and no out.
Yeah, we heard that Waylon had one and Josie had one.
Okay.
Because I still think that Josie's phone was used to call 911. They didn't give a shit that those two weren't home. Don and Candace. No, those boys were just like, yeah, whatever. She's telling us to clean up for CPS. We've seen the pictures. No one picked up a damn thing.
Been there for like a week or so, she told me. They keep stalking other kids.
Both Don and Candace deny this claim, but still, it is an odd claim that Hunter brings up. Where did this come from? And I don't believe this, just given the fact of like, why would Candace be telling Hunter this stuff? And also, why is Hunter like going, oh, what was that about? You know, what was that? It just kind of seems off to me. And so that's why I say with Hunter is like, you can read into some of the things he's stating.
I will agree with Sec to no one. I do not think Hunter had anything to do with Summer's disappearance for a lot of reasons. Transportation would be one. He does not have his own vehicle. He did not have a driver's license at the time. He's not going to get on his bicycle and, follow him from Kingsport. He was not at the house that day. He had to go he had an appointment, and his girlfriend's mom took him. That has been confirmed, correct, Andrew?
Yes. And not to mention, I'm thankful you thought that boy had a bike. That boy loves walking everywhere. He doesn't get on a bike or nothing. He loves to walk.
Good. It's better for you, they say. I don't know. And I think it was used as an alibi, and she thought 4 hours wasn't a big deal. 4 hours is bigger than her fiddle farting around all morning. 4 hours. That's a much bigger deal than these stupid errands that she ran all morning. She's not going to use her mother as an alibi because Grandis has already called her out. Grandis is the one that said, no, it was an appointment. Not appointment. No, I went to the ER. She said, I think they went swimming, meaning she wasn't at Warriors Park. I think they went swimming. Well, if your old ass is sitting right there, you obviously see your granddaughter splashing around. I think they went swimming, is what she said.
She said, and I think it was at Warriors Park.
Mm-hmm.
So why would she say that if she was there? See,
She did.
there,
No.
that right there, that proves to you she was never there.
So Candace isn't going to use her mom for an alibi except for the first part of the day. And again, I'm not saying Candace did anything. I'm not saying that. But the proof is in the pudding, and the eating's at the table, and everything from the day is messed up. Do I think, Andrew left. I wanted to talk to him about this. Andrew, where the hell did you go? I do think, not purposely, I think Hunter knows a lot more. I think there were some things that went on, not just on June 15th, but before that he blocked out. I really, truly do. I mean, to the point when he was on his dad's channel, he said, and we went to Burger King. They never went to Burger King. No. I wasn't the only one that called Hawkins County. They'll tell you certain things. They knew about it, and they said, nah, we have no evidence of that. That's all I need to know. He's blocked some things out, or he's purposely lying to throw people off track because maybe there's something he doesn't want to tell. Or since he's been in trouble with the police before, in his young mind, he might think he will be in trouble for that day. I think that's the reason when he was contacted by Child Protective Services, he wouldn't cooperate. And yeah, they can call him because he was over 18 when it got reported. Think about that one.
And maybe take away a more accurate storyline, or timeline, I should say. But then there's stuff like this where I'm like, this kind of feels like, to me, fabrication after the crime has happened. But let me know what you guys think on that. In Hunter's version, then before going to the park, they go to one place, so not two. They go to the tobacco discount store to get everything I mentioned before, so the Twisted Tea, the vape stuff. But in this version, the hippie house stop, does not happen until after they went swimming. So again, I don't know how relevant that is. Maybe it's just one of the two misremembering, but just to show we can't trust probably either one of these stories to a T. Once at the park, again, it takes a very different form. And I think this is the most compelling part of Hunter's story versus Candace's story. Hunter states he and Candace sat by the water watching Summer while Grandma stayed in the car to do something with minutes for her phone. I think this is very reasonable. I don't know why Hunter would like come up with this lie of Grandma trying to get minutes on her phone. That gives me very Grandma behavior. And I also think it makes more sense than Candace's story of Hunter went off into the woods and then just randomly comes back. But the problem with what Hunter's about to say is Hunter specific.
Not me. Not me. I think the Twisted Tea was a bribe for Hunter. I think the vape was a bribe for Hunter. Why did Candace tell him out of the blue, well, I owe you a favor, and she gets him a vape? What kind of fucking favor can a 15-year-old do for her? And you rewarding with something you have to be 21 to buy? 2 items. Yeah, I guess he was out in the woods. I've seen the TikTok video. He didn't come off the sidewalk.
Excuse me, Brooks. I've got to go to my appointment now, but I will catch the rest of this later, okay, honey?
All right, you be careful out there. Everybody,
Okay.
bye-bye to Aunt Sherry.
Specifically notes he instead indulged in the vapes and Twisted Tea, and again, he's 15.
Where she give you something?
Yeah, that Twisted Tea.
And when did she give you that?
As soon as we got out the car.
And I know some of this stuff happens, but why is this important? For one, it shows Candace's, I would say, not great judgment of giving a child these kind of substances. 2, it is very damning for legal things, especially when you're being investigated. 3, I actually do think this probably did happen. I do think that Hunter was probably given these Twisted Teas and vapes, all that kind of stuff. Now, that's not fact. I don't know that to be the case. Candace denies all of this.
I sent him right there on the council, and he asked for one. I said, no, you can't have none.
But I think it makes a lot more sense as to why Hunter would want to come with them. Like, what is his fascination of coming with them if it isn't for like this? Oh, he's getting vapes out of it. He's getting to drink, whatever. And you could also make the idea that, okay, Hunter's 15. He's embellishing the story so that, oh, he looks like this cool 15-year-old drinking and all that kind of stuff. You guys were 15 once. This stuff happens. So I think there's a side to both of this, but I do tend to believe Hunter a bit more on the idea that Candace was giving him this stuff. Hunter then goes on to claim he went into the water as Summer was underwater for like 10 to 15 seconds, maybe thinking she was messing around, like holding her breath.
I just seen that she was underwater for like 10, 15 seconds. So I was like, are you okay? And I pulled up. She said, yeah, I'm just swimming underwater.
Hunter claims this could have led to a complication with water in her lungs or something. But once again, Candace denies this. So very.
Hunter says she texted him that she was in the parking lot at the hospital, which makes sense because COVID was going on. So they didn't want a lot of people sitting in the waiting room that don't need to be seen by a doctor. So she's sitting out there. Remember, she said, I don't like air conditioning, but it was warm that day and even that morning. So I guarantee she did. She didn't try to get a hold of her friend Allie and say, let's go have breakfast. She called a 15-year-old boy. Think about that. Yeah, I know you and Allie had a falling out, but come on, it's breakfast and Allie would have gotten to see Summer. But she calls Hunter to hang out. She gets Hunter a Twisted Tea. She gets Hunter a vape. She takes him swimming. She said, we're going to go fishing. No poles, so they go swimming.
Easily, there could have been a situation where Summer is doing what all kids do, wondering how long can I hold my breath underwater? And that might have led Hunter to like worrying about her or something like that.
Okay, we have a lot of ladies in here. And gentlemen, you're welcome to answer too. We've all had to take someone to a doctor's appointment, whether it be ourselves, a neighbor, a grandma, a mom. Who would you call if you knew you were going to be stuck for 4 or 5 hours? Your friend or your friend's teenage son? Or just sit there and wait. Read a book. Make one of your TikToks. I don't want to hang out with no freaking kids. That's nuts. Years ago, one of my son's friends tried to add me on Facebook, and I was like, F to the no. But now he's married and older, and we communicate sometimes.
I don't know if I believe this all that much, just given the fact that Hunter very much like paints himself as being very cool and heroic throughout his interview, and he just has a very weird demeanor about him. So I don't know if I believe this, but it would also reinforce the idea that Candace does not seem to be, in my opinion, the most present person in the world, or the best person in terms of judgment, especially when we think about the other kids. There's going to be a lot of accusations thrown around of neglect, especially how I said earlier, the 3 boys will be taken from their home. So maybe it adds into that. I'm not.
Oh my goodness, exactly right. Everyone, I want you to pay attention. I'm going to go ahead and give this a comment of the day. So if you think you might be stuck at the ER for a few hours, why do you go pick up Hunter when you could have piled all the kids into the truck? Said, we're all going to go. And I'm going to take everybody swimming. And I'm going to take everybody to Sonic. We're going to be there for Grandma. She got a bad knee. I had to wake her up this morning and say, Mother, I'm so concerned. Mother, I must take you for medical attention. Mother, I don't have any signal up here. I can't call an ambulance and you can barely walk. If it's going to be 4 or 5 hours, most human beings would just drive back home and then go back and say, hey, you have to sit there for a minute, but I'll come pick you up when you're done. No, everything was planned, my friends, and planned by an idiot.
Not sure what to take from this, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Hunter then states that this is the point where they left to go to the hippie house now, not before the swimming how Candace had said it. Hunter claims that Candace bought a vape pen for her and another one for him.
And then she came out with 2 vapes. She came out with hers and then another one she gave me.
And Candace once again denies this. So he said, she said, whatever you believed happened here is up to you. The next point of contention was the stop to the grocery store. Hunter and Summer had stayed in the car while the adults went into the store, and he claims they were in there for an hour, but again, Candace had stated it only took 5 to 10 minutes.
I think they was in the store for an hour, maybe.
Okay, they were in the store for a long time.
I think it's more likely that both parties are off on the timings. And again, when you're a kid and you're sitting in the car waiting for, your parents or whatever to get done, it feels like forever. And so I think it's more than likely that they were in there for maybe like 30 minutes, like maybe in between both of their times. I think that's very possible. Hunter then says he helps to get all the groceries in the car, but that does beg the question. If we are to believe Hunter that he helped put the groceries into the car, well, if they'd only gotten the bare necessities, gotten a couple of things, it would have been 5 to 10 minutes, why was he helping them to begin with? They didn't really have much to help with anyway, and this is going to come up again. So I do very much doubt the grocery story that it was 5 to 10 minutes, and I think they got more than they're maybe letting on. So this then returns us to our Candace storyline or timeline. So now Hunter has been taken home. He's not really part of the story until a little bit later. Now we're back with Candace, the grandmother, and Summer as they're returning home. Upon returning home, we get another confusing note about the grocery store story. Candace notes that she had her sons help her with the groceries, which again adds to the idea that they were in there longer than what they said.
We went and grabbed the boys from the house.
Okay, by the way, every time we see Chris McDonough on the screen, this person knows who they are. You're going to see a bottle of arouses and releases Trojan lubricant, and you're going to hear this noise. I will do it sparingly because it's dangerous when this certain person hears Chris McDonough.
Help us with the groceries.
Yep.
Because I always have them come help me do something.
It doesn't take very long to get your groceries out if you have like 2 bags and 2 milks. You know, it's very different if you have like 6 bags and 2 milks and all this other stuff. So yeah, I think that's a bit weird. But then they also separate the groceries as some were for grandma. So again, I just think
Hunter is the set of eyes, okay? Don's not going to work. He's not going to be involved. Grandis, believe it or not, is going to tell the truth. She already called her own daughter out on WJHL. She said, I think they went swimming. No, I didn't have an appointment. Candace said, I must get you medical attention, mother. I must. The boys aren't going to go down with all that. She'd already been having major problems with Josie. Their words, not mine. I don't live in that house.
I think this leads to show there's probably some inconsistency in Candace's story. After this, we were told it was a normal day of hanging out. The kids were watching TV. Candace was doing just like chores around the house. At this point, though, Grandma then decides she wants to replant some flowers that are outside their home. She asks Candace to help her, and Candace knows that Summer would have liked to do this as well, and so she comes as well.
And she's like, we got to get these transplanted. And I was like, all right, well. She goes, well, we know the boys ain't going to help because they don't like to do flowers.
Yeah, well, boy does, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was like, but I know someone that will.
They allegedly spent the next 30 to 40 minutes with these flowers, and Summer then says she wants to play with her brothers, and Candace walks about half the distance to the house with her and watches her go into the house. Candace then calls to the boys to watch Summer while she stays with Grandma. And so again, there's not a very big difference from where their grandmother is at and where
Candace can't even take a proper shit, okay? Forget about better homes and gardens, okay? Forget about that. Just got home and decided must replant succulents. Oh, okay. There was weeds in that bucket. There's weeds in that bucket. I would love to know where they got them. Candace can't even take a proper shit. She did an entire live on the Can't channel talking about how she was all backed up. I'm just all backed up. I'm all backed up. Then she drinks some hot beef broth and the bowels started kicking in. She farts online and shuts down the show because she had to go.
they are staying. It's like maybe 50 feet. It's not a huge distance away. So again, this wouldn't have taken all that long. Candace says she spent 2 to 5 more minutes, as this varies from report to report. And we also are not exactly sure what she was doing with her mother. I've heard that it was like helping her with like her knee, if she maybe had a brace or something like that.
Over there. And I had to go and get her knee brace and fix it for her because it was twisted and crap.
Okay.
It took me like 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. I don't know.
But after this, Candace heads back to the house. She heads through the front door and does not see.
Oh, Lisa said, "Are you serious? LOL. It's in my playlist. It's in my playlist." We sat here for almost 2 hours, and the show ended when Candace's left shoulder came up. She did her head to the left. She squeezed one eye closed, her left eye like real tight, and then we hear, and she had to go, literally.
Summer. So I want to point out now with how the house is kind of laid out. So there's 2 doors more or less into the house. The one that is the front door, you can view where their grandmother is. The back door, you could not have seen where the grandmother was or where Candace would have came in from. So I just want to point that out, that if we're working on the idea that this is an intruder with this story, they came in the back way, not of course the way Candace just came in. Candace asked the boys where she is, and they tell her she went downstairs to play with her toys. This is not weird, as her room and her parents' room was downstairs, but I want to point this out. I will have pictures up and a video up. Summer's room looked more like a dungeon. This is not a fit place, in my opinion, for a girl to grow up. And again, I know lower class and you have restrictions on your money and all that kind of stuff, but this is
Okay, they are low class by trade and character. They are not low class because of money. All right? They were given a house and 11 acres. I would have sold off 6 acres, 5 acres, however I want to do it, fixed up that house and be living large. Living large. This is them. This is them. This is how they like to live.
unsettling to look at. And I think, to me, it goes to fuel some of my thoughts for this case. This is just a horrifying way that she has to live. Candace then calls downstairs a few times and gets no response. Candace went down to check on her as this was abnormal and found that she was gone.
And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight.
Candace then called Don before phoning the police. He told her to call 911, and both of them called the police. Candace says she was not going to wait around for the police and claims she was driving around the area checking for her. She saw no one else or any other cars.
And I started tracing the property, going everywhere I could. I sent my boys down.
It is a beautiful property, and the house has good bones. They're not what I would call deep thinkers. They're not what I would call business people. Like I said, they could have sold off some of that land and totally remodeled that house. But what happens? Summer goes missing, and all these Captain Save-A-Hoes come to the party, and they redo it for them. They have a floating floor. They have an actual staircase that goes to the dungeon. The dungeon's totally redone. New lighting, cream paint on the walls. Yeah. Priorities. They are low class. They're low class by character. And that's how they live.
Well, we live on the hill, so it was down by the creek. I sent them all down through there looking and everything.
I want to point out, once again, she has left her other children completely alone. It's been reported that she basically told them to go hide in this area of maybe the woods or the forest or whatnot. And I want to point this out. This is what Candace and Don believe very early on. They believe that Summer was abducted. So your first action is, let's leave my other 3 children alone, open to possibly also being abducted. It's just mind-blowing to me. The logic here is wild, okay? The other part of it is you might be asking, well, isn't it very reasonable to assume Summer might have gone out the back door and then maybe she just went exploring, she got bored? We're told from Candace that she ingrained into Summer's mind not to do that because there were a lot of dangers out there, wild animals, all that kind of stuff. And that's why she doesn't assume that she just went, missing in the forest. Another point people brought up is, why didn't Candace call 911 right away? I think this is very normal. I don't really understand this criticism, given the fact that a lot of people do this. When my grandfather passed away, my grandmother called my mother, and then also her sister and my aunt, and then we called the police on the way over. So it's something where when you have a very stressful situation, you're very panicked, you're going to call people that you trust and rely on to help you, and then also call the police. A lot of people do this. This is not abnormal, in my opinion. I think you should probably call 911 first.
If they were normal people, I would dig it. You can't find your child. You live in a remote, rural area. Again, we're talking about normal people. You're going to call your husband or your wife, okay? That is so common in missing children's cases, except for Harmony Montgomery, because they knew where she was. Actual missing children's. And then when you realize you need help, then you call the 9, the 1, and the 1. I think, I'm not sure how to say it without making an accusation, that chick over on that bitch Mama Bear has been trying to talk Candace and Don into suing creators. And I've probably said some things that shouldn't have said. I welcome it. I welcome it because the discovery, they would never make it through on why I say these things. They would not. Nope, 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 nope. Not at all. So her calling Dawn saying, I can't find Summer, and Dawn saying, I'm in Johnson City or wherever he was. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm too far away, call 911. For normal people, I would understand that. I don't think that's how it went down. But for whatever reason, Dawn did call 911 and he got patched into Hawkins County. I think Josie called him. I do not think Candace did.
But I don't think this is abnormal whatsoever. Another thing I want to point out here that really is tough to try and figure out this case is we do not have the records from the police at what times Candace or Dawn called 911. So there's a lot of problems with trying to put together a timeline in terms of the exact times of things. So like, for instance, the John Bonet case, the Madeline McCann case.
Don't compare Summer to them. I don't like that at all. ICU said, sue me, please. You've talked a lot of shit. You have talked a lot of shit. Look at that. Woo! Volunteering for a lawsuit. Woo! And I know in Discovery exactly what ICU would be asking.
Those are cases where I can give you exact.
You know, my friend from Seattle, Washington.
Times or relatively close times to when things happened. That's not the case here. For the most part, we're working off a timeline that, for one, is not exactly the most trustworthy, and two, where times are really not provided throughout. So I want to point that out as well. There is a little confusion, though, on the call from the dispatcher in which they state that Candace was on a walk and lost Summer, and that Summer was 4, not 5. This could very well simply be miscommunication, especially if you're panicked. And you also going to be thinking the way Candace might have described it. She was walking back to the home and then Summer got lost. We're not even sure if this dispatcher had talked to Dawn or Candace, as we're told both called the police. So could have been some miscommunication from telephone, from going from Candace to Dawn, from Dawn, then to the police. So we just don't know really what was happening here. Candace would also make a call to Hunter saying that Summer was abducted, to which Hunter, for some reason, thought that she was joking. And this, in my mind, is very disturbing when you watch this interview that I'm pulling a lot of this from. It seems like he just didn't even care. Like, he was kind of giddy about the whole.
ICU said Cat OG is my neighbor. Well, that's why that bitch doesn't have time for me. She's hanging out with you. Having the crumpets and the English tea. I knew something was going on. You whores.
Interview, and this is part of that. So I find Hunter to be very weird in this story of like his reaction to this kind of stuff.
So she called me saying that Summer's missing.
Okay.
I thought she's pulling a leg because she's known to do that.
Dawn then would arrive before the police, which is quite odd because if Candace had called Dawn, then 911 directly after, that would mean it took the police at minimum 40 minutes to get there or even longer. So either Dawn is closer.
Okay, this is the reason this has been my theory for quite a while after really thinking about it. And I think we all know that I think about this case way too much, okay? Children do know how to call 911. Children aren't scared of calling 911. Hell, we have had news clips on here before of 6-year-olds calling 911. There was a 4-year-old that called 911, but that was more of an accident because the kid also ordered a bunch of stuff off Amazon. Candace didn't even call 911 when her friend Dee Dee was dying right in front of her. Kat said Brooks called us a horse, ICU. Well, I know when I've been replaced. Enjoy your new best friend, ICU. You all just have all the fun you want to have. She probably gave you that other pink backpack. I know exactly what that bitch is like.
Than what he said, because Don says in an interview he got to his home first before police were there, or the police response was terrible. I can see either being the truth, but because we don't have exact timings of when calls happened, we don't know. This is pure speculation. It's very likely the police response could have been very delayed given that this was a very isolated area in Tennessee. That's very plausible in my opinion. Either way, upon Don returning to his home, he believed she was abducted right away.
Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. You know, I knew that right away, and that's what I told him from the beginning.
And to me, this is, I think, a bit strange, mainly because you're living in an isolated area with a lot of forests and trees and all that kind of stuff. Even if you had ingrained into your child's mind, okay, don't go out into the forest, don't go out here because it's dangerous, they're still kids. This is why you supervise them. Just because you tell a kid, oh, don't run when you're next to a pool, doesn't mean they're going to listen to you. That's just not how kids work. And so the idea that you instantly think she was abducted to me is strange, especially given that Summer was not being watched over at the time, so she could have just wandered off. And even more importantly, when we get into the investigation side of things, there is no indication there is an abduction happening at all. So yeah, there's a lot of things I find very suspicious with the parents and the family dynamic overall. So firstly, let's note.
And your loyalty is not being dismissed. Just know Kat is BFF with ICU now. But if you want to continue with that, you go ahead. I feel like they both have lied to me. Good morning, Boston.
That if someone kidnapped her, there's only one possible way that this could have been done. The intruder had to have came in the basement back door, not visible from the grandmother's trailer, and we know that both the parents do not know if the door was locked or not. Either way, we have to believe that Summer was kidnapped in a span of a few minutes, mere 50 feet from where you were, if Candace's story is correct. So if Candace, what she's telling us is right, that it was only 2 to 5 minutes that she was away, and that she was actually with her mother, this all happened in the span of less than 5 minutes while being in talking distance. Like you don't even have to shout. You'd probably be able to.
We have a question from the audience. My former best friend, Cat OG, said, anyone else like a piece of my pie? Yes, hold on. I've got someone in the back. She does. So you go right ahead and get her a flat while you're at it. My goodness. What a revealing show.
Hear them. If they talked at normal voice, like this talking voice, you'd probably be able to hear from 50 feet away. So you have to believe that Summer did not fight back. So Summer was either knocked out instantly, and again, there was no sound, or she was killed instantly, or she went willingly. Nobody heard nothing. The boys that were directly above her supposedly heard nothing. Candace herself hears nothing. Her mother hears nothing. And even more importantly, you remember when I said there were 8 to 13 dogs left?
Okay, I'm going to say this. First off, welcome new members. Thank you, Ange. Thank you, Ange. Thank you, Ange. Okay, Candace doing debauchery with a 15-year-old, not an unordinary day. Candace caring about her mother's plastic knee, that's an unordinary day. Okay? The dogs not being home. These are stray inbred dogs. And they're just not there is an unordinary day. The busyness and all the different running around of the day to create an alibi is a very unordinary day. Candace talking to Allie on FaceTime and she's trying on hats. She probably stole from the damn gas station and she was drunk off her ass. That's an ordinary day.
Living on the property, not a single one barked, had any indication that there was somebody on the land, or the property, I should say. If you know anything about dogs, and I'm not saying every dog, most dogs will alert to some new presence or some new person being in their property or area. I also want to point out, dogs have incredible senses of hearing and smell. they would have known somebody was there. So the idea that we have to accept that multiple witnesses within 50 feet of her.
I know a creator, just like everybody else, that missed the driveway because I didn't even know a house was up there and finally got it. GPS doesn't really work. You got to do like an old school map to find it, directions. Okay. Those dogs almost mauled this man and his girlfriend. Almost mauled them. It was all they could do to get the dogs off of them. Here comes Can't. Oh, they just need to eat. And she brings out something to feed them. Like that one night we saw her out in wildlife and she was feeding potato salad to a raccoon. She's a real jackhannah.
Heard nothing. You have dogs that heard nothing, didn't see anything, didn't smell anything, no indication that anybody was there. Unless, now this is where we get to the point where if there was an intruder, the only way it makes sense, I think, is that it was somebody the dogs would have known. So if we're working off the intruder idea, it starts to get a little murky because I think it had to have been somebody that the dogs wouldn't have reacted like strongly to, like they wouldn't have maybe barked at them or anything.
Well, I smell what he's stepping in. I got it. The only reason the dogs aren't going to bark is because they recognized who was around them. Like OJ doesn't come after me. I understand he's a cat, hissing and got fangs out, but he damn sure will if another animal's in the yard. And he's very skittish around people that come over just, to hang out, have Thanksgiving, whatever. Now, Thanksgiving, he's in a good mood. That's his favorite holiday. But Jody said she saw the dogs that day. She saw them. She said they run up and down the hill. She saw them that day. She heard them that day. But Dawn said the dogs are retarded and then they just go off for days at a time, the whole pack of them, and then they show back up. I don't think so.
Like that. But even then, it's weird. It's wild to think that somebody could have gone into their basement because maybe the door was unlocked. That's fine. Taken Summer, carried her out or did something, and nothing is heard. Not a scream from Summer being attacked or maybe any type of physical contact, not a twig snapping, nothing. Very weird in my opinion. It's a lot to swallow. It is a lot to accept. Getting back to the investigation, though, over the coming days, many rescue organizations in the area would look for her and her remains and would find a scent trail that did lead from the back door to the road, maybe adding to the idea that she did go that way. So possibly, either one, we have the idea that maybe Summer could have just willingly left the home for some reason, gone down to this road, and then was taken by someone. So maybe something similar to like the Maura Murray case. But more likely, somebody would have intruded into the home, taken her, brought her down to this vehicle on the road, and then left. All without making a sound and all within a precise window. That's more or less the premise we're working on with what the family believes. This is the idea that the Wells think. Also adding to this, aerial assistance would be used in that first day, and following this, dive teams would later be used in the bodies of water around where she went missing. Say what you want about this case, but there are a lot more rescue efforts by law enforcement in the first day than, say, the Maura Murray case. That's something that I found to be at least refreshing in terms of like there was a active, search going.
Say what you want, and I agree with Boston. The Maura Murray case is wild AF. But the state of Tennessee pulled out all the stops. All the stops. Believe it or not. They pulled it all out. To the point when they ran out of money, the director of the TBI went to the state Congress, the state Senate, and said, we're going to need more money. And he mentioned the Summer Wells case. It's in the playlist. Check it out. I know when you guys get bored and you want to hear my voice, you go over just random playlists.
On that first day, they didn't waste a lot of time and they got going. Now, I think there's the criticisms of police in this case as well, but I think here they did a better job than, say, other missing cases where the police have delayed efforts. They don't seem to care as much, all that kind of stuff. Overall, law enforcement would go over around 5,000 acres of land looking for Summer. During that first day she was missing, Candace was taken in for a polygraph test by police, but she did not finish it as she was too broken down with grief. Now, you can interpret this in two ways. You can interpret it in the way of like the John Bonet case with Patsy, where you believe that her grief was maybe real, but it was also used to kind of like not have them be questioned and interviewed right away. Same idea could be here. I'll say this with the polygraph. Why are we doing polygraphs? They're not exact sciences. You can't even use them in court. So I don't really know why we're wasting our time on a polygraph. Why not just actually interview them like you normally would? So I don't really understand why the polygraphs were thrown in there, but who knows? Maybe it was just an added thing they were doing. But the other thing could be, obviously, you just lost your daughter. You had lost your sister to the same type of thing earlier on. It's a lot to handle. And so I definitely can believe that. And especially given the fact that the Wells cooperate with the police and have had full cooperation. This is from the police's own words.
He doesn't know. That was early on. They said, yes, they are cooperating. They are answering our questions. March of 2022 comes around and they said, no, they're not cooperating. Then they had a press conference in June about Summer. This would be the 1-year disappearance, I believe. Well, yeah, it would, 2022, duh. And they said, well, we don't really want to focus on cooperation. And I'm like, yeah, I know why. So TBI wouldn't say that they're cooperating. They just said, we just don't really want to focus on who's cooperating and who's not. Told me all I need to know. They're not cooperating.
The Wells family, it probably just was grief. They just maybe were overcome with that, because even a couple days later, they would go back in. So 5 days later, Dawn, Candace, and her mother would be given polygraphs. They all would pass, but again, who cares about polygraphs? They're not exact or anything close to it. And so maybe
I've never heard about Grandis taking a polygraph. Again, not suggesting she did anything, but considering she was right there on the property, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for them to ask. I will say this, we have learned a lot about polygraphs over the years, and we know they mean nothing in a court of law. Okay? They mean nothing. It makes the police, it's a tool for them to use, but they can be wrong. I mean, if you saw any of my shows about Pam Hupp, you'll know that she's the real killer of her friend, and Russ Faria failed his epically, and he was totally innocent. It happens. I will say with Candace's IQ, alcohol, and drug abuse, it would be very easy for her to pass one. Her pulse pretty much always stays the same. If you remember the Harmony Montgomery case, when the chief was asked about Adam, we call him Teardrop around here. We have a playlist on that too. A reporter asked the chief, did he take a polygraph test? And he said, with his criminal behavior, that would do us no good, and it's just an added expense. Okay? I'm saying that about Dawn. I'm saying that about Dawn.
Take this as being, okay, this is good for the Wells. Maybe they are telling the truth. But to me, I'm not really convinced. I think it's something added in there where it's just like, okay, well, maybe that makes me think that the Wells didn't necessarily do it, but it's not nearly enough. On the 17th, after the interviews had been done, we are told by Hunter that Candace came to his house telling him about the interview and to tell him to not tell anyone about giving him alcohol underage.
She got here, she was like telling me how she talked to them and was like, don't mention about the alcohol, but I don't mention it.
I could definitely see this happening. You don't really want Hunter to admit that you were giving him stuff illegally. Makes sense to me. But that is not the important part of this interaction. It's more that Hunter says he more or less somehow managed to get Candace's phone and to check her pictures, all that kind of stuff. He says he's a very good tech guy. He very much plays himself up in the interview, which makes me kind of think this story he's telling is not necessarily the truth, but it could be, who knows. And from his own words, he said he went to the deleted section, the part where, like, when you delete a photo, it doesn't instantly delete it from your phone. You have to go to another part that says, at least on iPhone, it's you go to the recently deleted, and then that's where you fully clear it because it stays there on your device for like 30 days. So Hunter says he went to that section and he found 13 messages that I guess were screenshotted, I'm assuming, by Candace between her alleged drug dealer. And then apparently he cleared them before Candace could tell what he did.
So when I looked in there, I seen 13 messages between her and her drug, I'm going to say drug dealer because he is Andy.
Very odd to me, because if this is proof that maybe Candace was doing something that she was not admitting.
They took Candace's phone. They took Grandis's phone. Her and Grandis went and got new phones, and they went and celebrated at the water park. If it's deleted, they can still find it, especially after all this time. This is another question. Hawkins County loves to bust the drug dealers and drug users. Okay? They do. I can't tell you how many times old Fred the newlywed has gone to the clink for his passion projects. They know all these things. They have left Dawn and Candace alone. They have left Candace alone. A lot of people ask, why was Hunter being paranoid? I think there's several reasons. First one, it's called his age. He's 15. 2, he understands the inappropriate behavior Candace is pushing on him. I showed you guys those Facebook messages in one of the shows. It's in the playlist. It was disgusting. Damn disgusting. We already know that Dawn has accused him of sending Candace porn. Dawn could have threatened him. He was in trouble by the police at the time. That's the reason everything had to go through a probation officer. I could see him being very paranoid, especially knowing he's with Candace and Summer, and Dawn is calling.
Why would you delete the only evidence of that? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion, because even if Candace catches you doing it, okay, well, she's going to delete them anyway. So like, I don't really get that. I don't think this story makes a lot of sense, like in terms of like, where does it fit in? Like, yeah, I think very obviously Candace could have been maybe buying drugs from someone or something like that. I don't think that's unheard of. Again, there's not a whole lot of evidence to suggest.
Well, I mean, if you want to believe Jody Sue, I mean, she has said that Andy dealt a lot of rugs on the hill. Fred also did. Fred and Andy are cousins. I understand they're not getting along now because all we ever hear about Andy is, Andy was on the road that day. Goodness, how many people need to speak to his employer? He still works for the dude. To be told, we gave all his timesheets to the TBI. Not saying Andy is salt of the earth dude.
But I don't think that's crazy. I think it's just Hunter being the source and how unreliable he as well as Candace is. So take that as you will. Another puzzling piece of the case is that Candace was upset that the police did not tell her that cadaver dogs are being used on the property. She says she could have been warned to make sure the dogs were not there to confuse the cadaver dogs. So this is when they're trying to find scent trails, trying to figure out where she possibly could have gone. This is how we know that there's a trail to the road. And so obviously this doesn't matter. Cadaver.
Or actually, since the new sheriff is coming to town, we're actually going to talk tomorrow about the current sheriff. I know you guys probably feel a little inundated when I do kind of the same subject over and over. You know, we've had several days of Harmony, several days of Michael Vaughn, several days of Athena Strand. But tomorrow they're getting a new sheriff. And like Jade said, competition on the hill. Like I said, they love to bust the drug people. They do. I don't have a problem with it. You break the law, you break the law. You do the crime, you do the time. Okay? So be it. Somebody on that hill is holding something over Ronnie Lawson or one of the detectives. I don't know. Because it seems like, except for Fred, they're all pretty much untouchable, meaning Summer's parents.
Dogs are highly trained. They know the difference between another dog and what they're trying to smell. So this didn't really matter. But on one hand, you could say that this makes sense, given that the police hadn't made really any progress on finding Summer. So Candace just could have been frustrated about their efforts, thinking they were more incompetent. Or this just could be that Candace was annoyed that she wasn't prepared for it. If there was something more nefarious going on, again, you can take it either way you really want to. Later, the police would get a tip from the Wells neighbor, Jody Sue Brown, and her kids as well, who say they heard like an animalistic scream that they claim wasn't from an animal around the time that she disappeared.
Just this kind of shrill, almost animalistic scream.
Animalistic, but not an animal.
Knew it was, wrong. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't an animal.
She also notes that she knows this because she was on high alert, given she had also had some sort of property issues as well. Now, the police would make a statement on this. Very rarely do they do so. Again, they don't make much stuff public for this case. They would say that this had nothing to do with the case upon further interviews. I would love to know what happened in those interviews, or something that shows why this was discounted and cleared away, because in my opinion, this is very relevant. If this did happen around the time that Summer is claimed to have disappeared, that's really relevant, because that could tell you that there was a scream happening that the Wells family is saying didn't happen, that did happen. Now, could it possibly be that they got to the interviews and the scream did not happen when they said it did? They said a time that obviously would not make sense with the Summer Wells case, or what they're describing. Maybe further analysis is more of just an animal or whatnot. We don't really know what allowed this to be cleared away, but I would love to know if the police ever want to clear this up, why that ended up being the case. But because it's an active investigation, you're not going to get that yet. A few days after Summer went missing, the police would make an announcement stating they were looking for a 1998 to 2000 red Toyota Tacoma that had white buckets and also a ladder rack in the back. They think the person could have seen something, but was not necessarily a suspect, but no one has confessed to this. And if you're an innocent person, you're seeing this, and you're like, I could give some sort of information, why not step forward? So I do think this is a bit odd, especially given this is a
Why not step forward? They are not concerned about your drug dealing. They're not concerned about your drug intake. They should only be concerned about Summer Wells. Over the almost 5 years we've been doing this show and getting together every morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. Love you. We have heard many press conference saying, don't care about any of that stuff. Don't care about your warrants. Matter of fact, we can make them go away. We need answers on that. Or we need answers on this. Hawkins County is not doing this right. Okay? If you remember the Harvey Montgomery trial, again, we have a playlist. One person after another, because scumbags hang around scumbags. Okay? They do. Dogs have the same fleas. You get it? We saw one person after another that was giving a testimony about what happened to Harmony, what they witnessed, etc., etc. And each one of them had a proffer agreement to talk. So they forgive all the other stuff because it's about a little girl.
Child at stake, you feel like you would want to come forward, but who knows, maybe they wanted their own privacy or just didn't want to get involved because maybe they were doing something suspicious. I don't know what the case is, but to this day we still don't know what this means. 6 weeks later, the boys would be removed from the home by the CBI, and we are not sure exactly why this was the case. The reports have led to many different things, but mainly it has been stated that the living conditions were unsafe and there were neglect concerns. Don talks about his issues with substance abuse and says this may have led to why the children were taken. He says in an interview that he reportedly lost it. I also want to add to the fact that in October of that same year, this would be after Summer disappeared, he would be charged with a DUI.
I'm gonna lie to you, I went off the deep end. I did.
Oh, I can totally understand.
I started drinking and other stuff and just lost it.
So you can just tell this is an unstable home. There might have been neglect going on, might not. I'm not sure. If you just look at the pictures or videos that have come from the house, it's a messy situation. And when you do have reports coming out about the parents and all this kind of stuff, it's not a great look for them. And so the fact that you have one child that disappears and your other 3 children that were in the home get taken away, it paints a very dark picture of the parents. And it's why so many people start to look at them as possibly being responsible.
It is dark. It's a very dark place. And when it all comes out, and eventually it will, everything in the dark comes to light at some time. At some point. There are people that are being discovered and cold cases found 16 years later, 20 years later. It will come out. And I'm telling you, it's going to be very dark. Because it's taking 3 agencies almost 5 years to solve it. You've got the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You've got the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. And then you've got the Boy Scouts in Hawkins County. Because Pruitt and Lawson, those 2 basic bastards, couldn't find their ass with 2 hands and a flashlight and a gay dude.
Responsible for Summer's disappearance. Either way, the official missing persons report will be filed on June 15th, the same day she disappeared. The following day, on the 16th, an official Amber Alert would be sent out, and to this day, the police reinforce that there is no evidence of an abduction and no one has been ruled out in this investigation. So when we talk about, for instance, the Madeline McCann case, the John Bonet case, eventually the parents were ruled out as being the people that did it. Even if I might disagree with those things, that is what happened. Eventually, they were cleared. Summer Wells' parents have not been excluded from the investigation. They are still possibly under investigation at this point, and the investigation remains active, which is why a lot of this case cannot fully be covered. And so when we get 5 to 10 years down the road and we get more details from the police's end about what happened in those days and about the people involved, this will become more of a complete case analysis. Hopefully there is some closure to this case. Hopefully Summer is found and hopefully fine. But at this point, that is where the story ends. And so that begs the question, what did happen to Summer Wells? Was there an intruder? Was there something darker going on involving the parents? What is the case? Now, remember, these are all theories. None of these are fact. And I'll be mainly doing what I do for all of these cases. I'm going to give you what I think is most probable of what.
I have a feeling, and yes, I've seen this before, but I didn't take notes. I don't remember everything. I have a feeling he's going to be safe with this. He's going to pull like a wandering off thing like Mike King did. Everyone asked for my theory. I believe it's foul play because the agent at TBI has said they have ruled out abduction and her wandering off. Now, I know some people could say, well, they're wrong. Well, they're wrong. Well, they're wrong. It's like Daisy Cow saying, did you hear about that Athena Strand? That Amazon driver backed over her and picked her up. That could have happened to Summer. And I'm like, you dumbass. Criminals lie. The trial is going on now. I think their first day, they said that whole story was made up. Criminals make things up. You don't believe a freaking criminal. You believe the evidence.
Happened, but not necessarily what actually did happen. So the first proposed theory is the one by the family, and the idea that someone came into the home and kidnapped Summer Wells, possibly taking her to a vehicle on the road where the scent trail by the cadaver dogs ended. From there, she was either killed or abducted. There are definitely variations to this theory, like maybe someone saw Summer at the park where they were swimming, followed them back home, and then kidnapped her at that point. Very possible. Given how, I would say, remote they were at, though, I feel like you kind of would have felt someone following you, but who knows? Maybe they did a good job and just Candace didn't really notice them or any of that kind of stuff. But it's very
Okay, real quick. In the poll, 82% of you said Hunter should re-interview with McDonough. Obviously, Allie won't be there. Hopefully, they do it somewhere a little quieter without Candace going by honking and shit, without Sandra bothering or Deborah bothering Allie. I think it would be very helpful. Some of you said no, and some said, not sure.
very possible. This would lead to the idea that it was very much sexually motivated, I would assume. But again, there's not a whole lot of evidence to back this up. There aren't any unusual people that are pointed out by Candace or Hunter in the timeline of like somebody watching them or something like that. Another theory comes from the idea of Don himself in an interview says there was an ex-employee who he had been forced to fire that didn't take it well. He seemed a little mentally unstable. That possibly could have been behind it. There would have been some motivation there, and the wording that he states in this interview is quite weird. So there's a possibility there. And then lastly, it possibly could have just been this drug gang or this criminal activity or group in the area. That's also another possibility. So that is kind of the idea of the intruder theory. And I've talked a lot about in this video already why I think there's a lot of reasons to doubt the intruder theory, given, again, from the police's own words, no evidence to suggest there was an abduction. I will say it's kind of weird that they say that, given there is at least a cadaver dog trail that goes down to the road. And also they're looking for this random truck. So I don't know if there's no evidence to suggest it, but I do think there isn't a lot, given there's no sound heard. There's no signs of a attack or break-in. And also it just seems out.
And somebody would have to either drive up the driveway, because remember, they don't live in a neighborhood like mine, you know, on flat ground, driveway. I mean, I could see how a child is picked up, lured off, whatever you want to call it, if they're just right out on the street playing, if they're running to the ice cream truck, or if they're at the basketball court, or they're walking down the sidewalk with a toy looking for friends to play with. I see that. Somebody would have had to have made a lot of effort, and it was either scheduled and planned, or for whatever reason, they really wanted a child and knew somebody up there never pays attention. Now we go back to Summer's head being shaved. Did Don and Candace know that they were in trouble with somebody? They spent a lot of money in 2021, and I mean a lot. Okay? When those stimulus checks started coming in, they were electronic rich. You saw everything that the police took from them. All kinds of different phones, laptops, a smart TV. Of course, they said, well, I got another phone. Well, you went and got one. They have a way, they have dogs that actually can smell digital, okay? I don't care if you've got an iPod in your closet you got from a garage sale in 2012. They're going to smell that.
Of place given what we hear from Candace's story, but I will say it's definitely very possible. It wouldn't shock me if it came out and said that this was an abduction, but I do think when we look at the probabilities, I don't think it's likely. So that leads me to the theory that I've kind of hinted at throughout the video, is the idea that the parents were involved in some regard. Now, this is where I'm kind of stumped. Now, for me, I think the parents are in one of two camps. One camp is they actually don't know what happened, but they're telling lies, or they're not telling the story in a way that comprehensively is the truth, and they're hiding maybe things.
And I know this from another case, which I won't mention right now because I don't want to cross cases. This family, who has nothing to do with their child's disappearance, said, take whatever you need, take whatever you need. But they still ran what they call a digital dog through to make sure there wasn't anything else. Look, they don't sniff blenders and Instapots. They're looking for devices. There's dogs that smell money. They smell around for money. Of course, we know about drug dogs. We know about just regular scent dogs. They're just looking for someone's scent. And we know about cadaver dogs. There's a lot of different dogs with a lot of different skills.
Things that they were doing. So, for instance, like Hunter getting alcohol and vapes from Candace, I think the story itself is hiding some of the details of possible neglect, of bad decisions, of things that could have allowed a situation to get where it did with Summer. So I think that's the first option, is that maybe they don't know anything that's going on, but that they still are fabricating parts of the story or leaving parts out to make themselves look better than otherwise. And the second part of this, which comes with a lot of variations as well, is that to some degree, the parents know what happened to Summer. Whether it was she was abducted and they have some complicity in it, or she was accidentally hurt in maybe some sort of domestic incident like what Don had in his past, something along those lines. Maybe something happened at the watering hole, like we hear with Hunter saying possibly water could have gotten into her lungs or something. Maybe she died that way. We do not know. And so I want to look at, why do people put so much suspicion on the parents, myself included? So let's start off with that right.
Ooh, he said myself included. Boy, I'm keeping you guys for a long time. Is anybody bored? Anybody bored? I'm not. I love hanging out with you guys. Grubby Goat said, why in the world did Candace bring Chris into her nasty house? That was a red flag for me, because in her mind, it's not nasty. She's proud of the way she lives. And also, they were advised by another creator. I will not tell you who this person is because it will cause an all-out war. And I don't want to get into that with this person. It's not worth my damn time. Encourage them to go the social media route. Okay? That's what they encouraged them to do. Start using Facebook. Start going on YouTube. And you can just imagine who the person is. So they see that Chris McDonough has a YouTube channel and they're like, oh, we were told to go on YouTube. And it all backfired on him. It all backfired on him. She had people coming to her house fixing it up for her. She has zero problem with the way she lives.
Away. So firstly, the criminal past of both of the parents and the possible signs of neglect is a very big red flag to me, because if it was viewed that their children are not suitable enough to stay in the household and they were taken mere weeks after Summer disappeared, that's a big red flag to me, to suggest that these people were not good parents, or they should not have been parents to these children. They could not either, one, provide for them, they were neglecting them, or they had their own issues that did not allow them to be ideal parents. So when you think about a disappearance of their daughter, it's very suspicious given those things. I mean, I've showed you videos or pictures of the home. You can come up with your own opinions from those alone. We then also have the shaving of the head, which brings up a lot of questions. Was this because Summer had lice? Was it because what actually the parents are saying? We don't know, but it's very suspicious in my opinion. I don't really think they're telling the truth based on their own statements and how they kind of contradict each other. Secondly, statistically, the most likely scenario is the parents were involved. It's much more likely that in a disappearance with a child, it is more likely that the parents or some part of the family was involved than it was just some random stranger that came into their home and abducted Summer, especially in a remote area. And so that's why I kind of bring it down to, if it was an intruder, I 100% believe it was somebody the family knew. I think it was either a neighbor, an employee, somebody that had some sort of connection to the Wells family that did this.
Neighbor, someone they know, I'll give you. I will, because the investigation that's still ongoing on Van Hill Road, that's definitely a connection. It's got to be, because they're putting way too much energy and effort into it. An employee, I don't think Dudley has a damn thing to do with this. Nothing.
and it was supposed to be like an attack on them. Maybe if you want to work off the Hunter idea that maybe there was a drug dealer, maybe this drug gang had a connection to Candace or Dawn, and this was like them taking revenge for maybe payments not being done or something along those lines. It kind of gets into a movie type scenario, and we don't have evidence to suggest that.
I don't watch Web Sleuths or go to her website or anything like that. I mean, I would love to see it too. I also have an issue when people private a live or unlist it. I've done it when I've made mistakes or something like that, but I'm talking about a live, not a video, a live. And she probably did take it down, and I think it's an important interview. But after what she did to the family of Gannon Stout, I have no time for her. None.
Just trying to present different ideas of what could have happened if the parents were involved. But like I said, the likelihood of a stranger or someone outside of the family abducting her is statistically unlikely based on U.S. crime reports on child abductions. This is not to say the parents did it, but to show based on probabilities is more likely than not that they were somehow involved. Thirdly, the story is just a lot to accept in my opinion, especially given we are told another timeline by Hunter that differs from Candace's and the two contradict each other. It shows that possibly both were lying at different accounts and we can't believe either story. And so the question is, why are they doing that? Are they doing that because they're trying to make themselves look better, all that kind of stuff, because of the media attention the case is going to get? Or is it that they're trying to cover up something? That's for you to figure out. But moving to the actual events that are said to have happened that day, I just don't believe that someone came into your house in a precise 2 to 5 minute window, stole Summer with not a peep being uttered by dogs, Summer screaming or fighting back, just nothing, all within 50 feet of the family. It just does not compute to me. Something here doesn't make sense. And you can make the idea, okay, well, an intruder comes in and they plan and they stay in the basement, kind of similar to the John Bonet case. They maybe plan and wait. They cannot predict that, okay, when Summer comes back to the house, she's going to be alone in the basement for a time where Candace is outside of the home. Also, you've got to be thinking, if this person came into the home and was just waiting for their opportunity, there were hours in which all three of the boys were left home alone. So was this sexually motivated? Did they want Summer because they had this weird brain and wanted a young girl for some reason? There's so many questions that just don't make a whole lot of sense when you put them together. And that kind of leads me to my conclusion. My conclusion is, I think the most likely scenario is that either an accident happened domestically with the family and that there are lies being done to cover it up, or that the idea is that the parents are somewhat hiding some of the details to make themselves look better. And maybe this even extends to the point of like, they know more about Summer's disappearance with maybe some outside party than maybe they're letting on. So there's a lot of theories. For the people that watch my John Bonet series, a lot of people have talked about the idea that possibly John and or Patsy basically gave John Bonet to somebody else. Like they allowed her to be like, quote unquote, kidnapped, and then something.
They said, what about are not evidence-based conversations. All right. So be very careful buying into some of these theories.
Maybe went wrong. The idea could be similar here, where it's like they were almost allowing her to be taken from the home, something along those lines. Not sure on that. Either way, I think any way you look at this, I think the parents are to some extent involved, whether it's them trying to make themselves look better, but they're not actually involved with what happened to her, or it's they know more and they actually do know maybe more about what happened to her, or three, they were behind it. I think those are the only options for me. I think the intruder theory by itself has problems with it based on the way that the story is shown to us. Now, do I think it's impossible? No, of course. I think that if I was going to give probabilities, I would say the parents are probably like 70-30 involved. I'd say 30% in there for like an intruder. There's a possibility. I think we need more information from the police to come to a concrete opinion, because based off of the information I have now, it's a lot of he said, she said, trying to read people. It's not like, say, the John Bonet case, the Madeline McCann case, where you at least have a lot of the information pulled together to come to a conclusion. So like the John Bonet case, you have the ransom note, you have the murder weapon, you have a body, you have a lot of stuff that you can kind of go off of to try and figure things out. Here, you have no body, no remains.
He's right. There was a ransom note, talking about John Bonet, the murder weapon. They have the DNA in John Bonet, where a child should never have DNA, which they know doesn't match anyone in the family. With Summer, you have a messed up timeline, circumstantial evidence, a bunch of rug heads, and where's Summer?
You have no indication of where she went outside of a cadaver dog trail. There is no witness testimony indicating that she was taken from the home. You have nothing here. So let me know what you guys think about the Summer Wells disappearance. I hope I did this case justice. Again,
personally, I mean, I think he hit it in the corner pocket quite a bit. Not all the time, but I really want to encourage people that have channels to talk about Summer Wells. We have talked about a lot of missing children on this channel, and every one of them are important. But every one of them, besides Summer, things are in place. They're having hearings and trials, or someone's been convicted. Nothing is going forward with Summer except for a new investigation on Van Hill Road. Seems to me it's important. If nothing comes of it, it still shows us they're not looking for a child that wandered off. Think about how many people have FOIA'd. Well, there's no body cam, but most of us thought there had to be. Police reports, interrogation videos, and the answer is no. Why would you not want that out if she wandered off or was abducted? Their words are actually very important, even though people say, I don't care about Dawn. I don't care about Candace. Why would you not? They're her parents. That's insane thinking. And no one's giving up now. The only time over the many, many years I've been looking into true crime, had a channel, started Facebook groups. The only time they say no, no, no on 911 calls and things like that, sometimes they'll leak them when they have a suspect, just to put them out in the media to kind of get that going. We've seen it before, and remember, different strokes for different folks. TBI, Hawkins County, of course, the FBI doesn't cooperate with shit. They're like, no, 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 no. But not no to you guys. Look at this. 13 starred comments. Erica's back, got her membership. Mirror Camp, 34 months. Look at Kat falling on the send button. Gifted memberships. Uli is 40 years old. I had no idea. And if you missed the video yesterday about her granddaughter, it's definitely worth checking out. Boy Mama, look at that, 38 months. Cat on the send button again, asking Andrew questions. Not a drama Nana. Ooh, she's a Nana too. $5, thank you. Asked a question to Andrew, answered it, and when I proposed another question, Andrew skated off. Mirror Camp, 10 Crime Lines and Lies memberships. Member for 3 months? Good to have you. Look at Ange, falling on the send button. Look at Kiki, just became a new YouTube member. And there's Pat K, she's always here for Summer. Well, believe it or not, I'm always here for you. Catch me in Discord, catch me on Facebook. I'm going to catch up on this crazy case at Lake Arcadia in Oklahoma to see if anything new has come out. If it has, I will be back here in about an hour because it takes me a while to process and put it together. If not, we'll do it tomorrow afternoon. You guys are the absolute best. Way to go, Mod Squad. Love you.